Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cornerstone Collective. My name is Jay, and I'm your host. With me is Angus McLeod.
Hey.
And Javan Brown.
Hello.
Who is our producer, stepping in for Gage Lee today. And so today we want to talk off this, guys. Interesting thing. We're a little bit about tech in this first section. I saw this thing on the Reels or on Instagram and stuff like that. Could have been TikTok. It says Chinese scientists are developing a drug to extend life to 150 years. Our average lifespan right now is about 76.4 years. What do you think about that?
What do you think, Javen?
I mean, it's pretty interesting because like I've seen them also experiment with stuff like CRISPR, which is like gene editing.
Yep.
So I mean, in theory, it could work, but I think they actually need to like have a test trial before any of it's actually put out or before they can advertise that it really is like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, maybe we'll see, but I also don't know how that works in terms of ethicality without the UN finding out about it. So,
yeah, I think they're doing little things that are maybe off board. You never know.
Yeah.
I think we are too. I think all of us are. But anyway, Angus, what do you think, man?
Well, immediately what I go to and what I think of is scripture where it says that the Lord limited us to 120 years.
That's right. Genesis 6:3. That's where it says it.
Yeah, and so that's the first thing that I think that if we actually achieve it and we get to that point, we should start listening for the horns.
Yeah, there you go.
Because I think that's, I mean, God said not to build a tower.
Right.
And we've all been speaking different languages ever since. He said that I limit you to 120 years, and if we break through that barrier, I think that we should expect we should expect a fairly large reaction from the
Lord. Snippy from God.
Yeah.
Snippy. And you're talking about the horns. You're talking about the rapture and Revelation. It says that there will be a trumpet of the horn will sound, and that the Lord will come as He did from the eastern sky. So
correct.
The Lord's return. We're always looking for the Lord's return. Yeah, interesting. Man, I was thinking about that. Like, okay, so it's talking about essentially doubling your lifespan. So we all know that, most of our fun years of life and mobility and all that stuff's kind of before 60, but most of us don't have the money to go travel and explore around until we're after 60. So this would be an interesting thing. I was also thinking, what age do you think they make you work till if you lived to 150?
That's a good point. Well, but you take a look at all of the stuff that they're doing in keeping people young and all of those things with your telomeres and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They're increasing the quality of life later and later. So you never know. Maybe 120 years you can still be as spry as when you were 100.
I guess so. I mean, I play golf occasionally with a guy, Pastor Jerry. Shout out to him. He's like playing. He's in his 70s, and he's a very good golfer. I don't know if he's scratched, but he's close. And I mean, he's got like energy and looks good and strong and bright and all very sharp man. And right in the middle of his 70s, pretty awesome.
I was just talking to my brother-in-law yesterday, actually, who works he works in hospice. And so he gets to meet some people who are pretty up there. And he said he's got a patient that he had recently who was 105.
Wow.
And man, he said that, once you get to be 105, you can say whatever you want. And the Lord is about the only one who can correct you.
That's right.
And so he was telling us some of the stories, and I've met a couple of people over 100, and that's 100% true. It's very funny the things that come out of their mouths.
That's crazy.
If you could get them to go on the road for stand up, it'd be hilarious.
That would be really funny. Oh my goodness, Jay, what do you think about like if you had that many years? What would you think? What's your plan on that? I mean, you're on the front end, man. You just hit adulthood.
I know, like I couldn't even imagine living that long without just like feeling insufferable pain whenever you wake up every single morning. It's like more of a hassle to keep going than it is to just release everything in your body.
Give it to the Lord.
Yeah, basically.
That's true. Yeah. That would be a grind. Your point with CRISPR is pretty interesting because they haven't really taken steps forward very much in that area, though they know how to do it. But that would make a very interesting idea. It would be like, as far as longevity goes, we kind of know the oldest populations tend to be in Europe or Asia. They're definitely not in the Americas. We're pretty rough going on ourselves and on each other, and our food kills us because it's sugar and everything. It's kind of like razor blades in your bloodstream. Yeah. So it's one of those crazy things. But I wonder, man, what kind of health regimen would you have to be on? You eat only like liquefied dark greens or something? I don't know.
Mediterranean diet for sure.
For sure. At least that. For sure. Yeah. You'd be a pescatarian with tons of greens or something. I don't know what else you'd do. You'd have to have something of substance, your teeth would fall out your head.
I don't even imagine, or you wouldn't even be able to walk at some point because like you'd just be too frail if you just kept eating like vegetables all the time. So I mean, you need some substance of some kind.
It'd be interesting to think about, like, because, you know, as people pass on, as they get into their older years, you know, we get into our 40s and you don't even want to change, like, your what the things you're into and that kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to be like, man, you had people who were running around at 120, still, like, you know, agile bodied. You'd be like, oh, these guys are insufferable, man. You know?
Well, you know, I've studied a little bit of the longevity science and stuff like that. It's really interesting when you start talking about telomeres and, you know, and various things that you can do at home, you know, to minimize those things, and just real minor nutrition tweaks and things like that to increase, you know, so it's one of those things. As long as you maintain what you have, you're not necessarily patching holes on the Titanic is what I tell people all the time. You know, you're maintaining what you've got, not trying to bail a sinking ship.
For sure. Well, I mean, Angus and I are kind of right in that sweet spot as you hit right in the middle of your journey in your 40s. We're in that sweet spot where they start to market to you all the things. So I get like TRT ads and hair replacement ads, and do you want fake teeth, and do you want this and that and the other thing, and all the different pieces and drinks and all the stuff you can have to help you be healthy, et cetera, et cetera. So, dude, I can only imagine what it'd be like if you're targeting a 100-year-old, like what that would be like.
I just had a friend who was posting yesterday that he just got a brand new hairpiece, and he was like, "This thing is great because you slap it on, you leave it on, and then nobody knows. And then when you get tired of the style, you just slap a new one on. It's fantastic."
Shout out to
like,
them. That's awesome.
And so thinking about that, like what sort of parts exactly that she like, you become like a micro machine.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about older folks, man. Like, you know, my dad's had his knees replaced. I know lots of people with knees, hips, all sorts of like you become you know you're a transformer. You're the Terminator. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, if you were reaching 100 and something, I think all your joints wear out, all your stuff would go. You know, unless they really could, you know, CRISPR it to be where you have some longevity and you have recent replacement cells and all the other stuff. Because that's the reason we get old, right? Or else theoretically we wouldn't be able to. So it's a really interesting thing. It made me think of something that it's obviously this is all hypothetical, but the idea with the narrative in the Bible talks about pre the flood and then post the flood, and how the days that people lived were these people were living in the 900s, like Adam and Methuselah and people like that. And it's kind of scientists and Christians, especially scientists who are Christians, were always thinking about this idea that it could be because the amount of oxygen was so much richer. It was a lot more of those kind of things. Like our atmosphere is actually benefit to make you live longer, and you didn't have that cell, you know, degradation, all that other kind of stuff. You guys ever thought about that concept? Yeah,
I've seen all of that stuff. And, you know, what's interesting is a few years ago, I bought an oxygen concentrator for my house because I had a random thought at my desk, and I pursued it. I called a guy, and then I followed up with my doctor. And I actually used that as part of something that I regrew the tip of my thumb. So I made my own oxygen tent around my thumb after I cut a large chunk out with a router, and it regrew.
That's crazy.
You know, and I've got very little residual damage and things like that. And so, I mean, and I can touch my toes now as a result of just oxygen.
It's because you have a longer thumb, so therefore you can touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right. But you're also part salamander, so that's
right.
With your water shoes.
As you have your other thumb is bandaged from cutting the other thumb.
Yeah.
Actually, I hit the nail off yesterday with a drill.
Oh, brother.
Well, yeah.
Dude, this is Angus. For those that don't know, Angus and his wife Annie are very involved in theatrical production at the local school. They do work with junior hires and high schoolers for their productions, and so he helps lead the way with all the staging and doing all the set design and helping the students learn how to build it. Yeah,
it's been pretty crazy. We've been spending pretty much every waking hour at the school because the goes up next week. So it's gonna be crazy.
That's pretty crazy. I'm excited to see it. My girls, one of my girls is in it. The other one's like backstage doing some stage stuff. So that should be cool to see a piece of that and see what it goes on to. Man, as far as the days and the years, I thought this was interesting too. Tie into Luke 12:25-26. It says, "And which of you being anxious can add a single hour to his span of life? Then you are not able to do as small a thing as that. Why are you anxious about the rest?" And I like that. It gave me a little perspective change on listen, if you can't, worry your way into living longer, then don't worry about the rest of it either. Like, trust God, walk with him. So pretty cool, pretty amazing. Interesting thing too, and this goes out to some of the way we grew up out here in the west side of Phoenix, is the idea that NASA is now using bass, and they've done this study using bass sound waves to put out fires. Have you guys seen this?
Oh, that's crazy.
I haven't.
These guys have like essentially a backpack apparatus that kind of looks like a leaf blower, but it's definitely not. And it's actually just pushing out waves of sound. And so it's like a series of like speakers that they've proven it will put out fires that are active.
I believe it.
Which is
It's
like
wild.
pretty crazy.
Does it work just what, like an EMP?
Essentially, yeah, it's the waves of the bass at really low frequencies, has such heavy vibrations that I think the wave is thicker because of the way it works. And so it hits it and is able to essentially put out the source. I don't know if it moves the oxygen off it or what, but it's interesting, right, to think about it that way.
That's
I
wild.
think it's kind of based off the same kind of concept as the crowd control technology.
That's true.
You know that they
high
point
pitch,
point those sound waves at you, and directionally, if you're not in the right direction, you won't hear it.
Right.
But if it's pointed at you, it'll make you nauseous.
Yeah.
Give you massive headaches or heart
That's right.
issues and things like that.
That makes sense.
So I think it works off that same kind of principle.
Oh, okay.
That would be my guess anyway.
That was, I was thinking about that. I was in Cuba a few years back, and year before last, and being there, it's kind of frozen in time from the 1950s as far as like the influences and stuff like that, and then there's Soviet influence after that. But all the Western influence you see is very much frozen in time with the old cars from America and stuff. It's pretty awesome. But they were some of the ones that really they experienced that in the American embassy there, was that they had that very thing happen where all of them were getting nauseous and stuff, and they figured out what it was people were putting those sensor cannons at them, and these guys inside the building were feeling sick.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
That's so wild.
I could see like these firefighters running around with like, fire truck, big subs on the side,
Yeah.
just bass checker, boom, boom, boom. It'd be like Phoenix in the 1990s, man. Where literally anybody who had any kind of whip, man, it'd be a broken down box of junk, but they would have subs in the trunk, man, and it would be rattling, so like boom, boom, just metal, clink, clink, clink.
Oh yeah.
So I thought that was pretty crazy. I was like, man, you could see it, it's like, try to put out the fires, grab the truck, put in the bass checker CD, roll down the block, help them out.
Prodigy would have to come out with a whole different kind of song.
There you go, exactly.
Fire starter.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Oh man. Something interesting with the advancement, we're talking about the advancement of technology and how that really, it changes how things work. We were talking about a lot of that with phones and technology and instances like that. We're talking about AI with Jeremy from a few weeks back. One of the things I saw recently was that because of the price to hire people in New York City, now they are using digital checkout people that are actually in the Philippines, and they're on a screen. They're paying them $3.75 an hour to be what they call a digital cashier, and they're working over Zoom. What do you guys think about that?
I think it's all very slow steps to a universal wage and no workers and complete AI, and then it's Ready Player One for all of us.
That could be it. Jabo, what do you think, man?
I mean, I don't see why they just wouldn't have like their own personalized chat bot. I feel like that'd be a lot easier to do than just paying like random workers overseas to just like provide assistance in a language they themselves might not even be that fluent in. Or do they have to pass like some sort of test?
Yeah, it's going to be like the way that they use Indian call centers in the U.S., where they're calling, they're the ones calling because they're a cheaper wage. So that's where they had those. These workers are, for the ones that I saw, were from the Philippines. And so for them, they're making a better wage than probably would locally. So they're making more money for them, but they also get to be there because we've met Filipinos across the world, like as we've traveled, who they're working, their families back home, and they're sending the majority of their check back home, as support. So I guess it's an option for them to think outside of the box and to work, remote while they're still physically there. At the same time, it's, like all these, you have a new mayor who is running on these populist ideas. People were kind of jokingly saying that he's a TikTok mayor because that's kind of like how he got support from the youth and from that vote, from going real heavy on TikTok. But one of the things that he's really pushing is like essentially like, rob the rich, feed the poor kind of thing. Not realize, most people don't realize like the operations in New York City is like, it's like almost 45% is from like the top 5% of earners that pay all the taxes. So it's like it's already being ran that way. So if he runs them all off, they're going to be busted. But even the low jobs, like you can't even go get like, I think they make like 15 an hour or 20 an hour minimum. So these guys are running shops are like, well, I know how to get my margin back. I don't have anybody to work here except for a security guy on the way out, and you just check your receipt. Yeah. So that's an interesting idea.
That's like cutting off 4 of your fingers.
Exactly.
4.5 of your fingers.
Exactly. So it's interesting, like here's the thing with the market. Whenever you try to control the market, like people get paid sometimes what their rate is. And I'm all about people having a livable wage, but sometimes people overflate that with the government and they force it to be that way. So what they do is they hire less people, or they will cull those people at the first sign of trying to make their market, their quarterly report numbers. And we've seen that happen even to people in our own community of faith, where our own church, where people are workers, they have lots of years in, they have skill set, all those things, but the real thing was they weren't making the same margin line. They need to make this margin line for the stock price, so they cut 1,000 workers, and they happen to be in the right indexes, and so they cut those guys out, which is a heartbreak, because it's like, man, it's ran by the markets. So now the localized market in New York City is starting to respond. That's really interesting.
Yeah. It's just so crazy to think about, and to be honest, I have a Filipino brother-in-law. I love Filipino people,
of course.
However, I would much rather them be paid that wage, and I still would rather talk to AI, because I think the language barrier, I've spent a lot of time with customer service, and as much as they try, there's just so much that is left to be desired that I think AI might still be a better solution.
100%. And it's also cultural difference too. Like people don't also understand how to even communicate that over like a face-to-face interaction, even though you're looking at a screen. It's like, yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that they're going to have to be very proficient. Obviously, we have a lot of friends who are Filipino, and they own businesses and very high function, high intelligent people, high intelligence people. But one of the things that's interesting about that is like, that's a market that's ready to respond. It's because they speak English already. So like a lot of the people speak English. A lot of them do customer service. They're interestingly, in Asia, man, when we would go to places like we were in Thailand together, the people that are singing and playing at these places, live music, all Filipino, like all super talented, like Filipinos that are doing stuff. So that was really interesting. It's like, man, these guys have a real skill set they've leaned into heavy, which is really good. And they sing beautiful, and it sounds just like the record. And you're like, wow, man, you're from the Philippines and you sound just like 80s rock or whatever it is from America. So there is a piece there where I'm sure there's some skill set where they can come across a little bit clearer than maybe other experiences that we've had. But we've all been on the phone probably with someone we can understand trying to talk our language. And I've been the other way as an expat living in other countries where, I didn't speak the language great, and I was probably butchering their language. And they're like, these guys, I wish this guy was AI. Sub me out for AI. You know what I mean? One of those kind of deals. Oh man. I brought this up and put this in here too. We saw a hotel in Japan is letting people stay for $1 a night if they are live streamed the whole time. Would you do it, Javan?
Oh, 100% I would do it. $1 to stay a night anywhere, even if you're live stream. I mean, it's fine, because as long as you're not doing anything crazy in that room, then you should be okay. Well, do they film you in the bathroom? That's the first question.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it has everything to do with just your room. At least that's my understanding. Now, if there was that other stuff, that's a different story. But I also just want a different. I think I have everything about the phase of life you're in. So you, as like a college student, it makes 100% that you would think that way.
Absolutely. I have nothing to lose from doing that, like literally at all. You just end up paying way less for a hotel, so it's not even that big of a deal.
So it's money in your pocket. You're not getting paid for the stream. Clearly, they're getting paid for the stream, and it's like some kind of an attraction. Yeah. So they're getting some monetization of like what would be their marketing. But I thought that was really an interesting concept. Angus, would you do it?
Again, it would depend on the context. Because of the way things are today, I probably wouldn't if I had my little girls and and stuff.
Yeah.
But if it was just me, I don't care if you really want to watch me watch TV. I mean, we can Truman Show together, I guess. But I don't do anything in my hotel room that is crazy enough that I need to hide or So it's like, as long as they're, like Javan said, not in the bathroom, I could really care less.
That's interesting. Yeah.
for $1 a night, because think of all the other things that you can do on vacation
Yeah.
if you're not paying for your hotel.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
true.
You know, I mean, that's some
true.
serious sightseeing. That takes you into a whole other category of food that you can try because of the amount of what you're staying, you know, because of how much you're staying.
Yeah.
And I mean, if they want to watch you get sick off the next tier of food, then by all means.
So you're saying you need to combo that with like a mukbang where you're eating like local noodles
Oh,
and
absolutely.
sushi off the street and whatever else they run in
Absolutely.
the Japanese market.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's well, along that line then, Javen, would you ever consider being a streamer? I know streamers are crazy popular with the younger generation.
I mean, like, streaming's cool. It's just really hard to break into like a market and be successful nowadays without having a really big platform on either TikTok or Instagram now. And the only way you can really grow that is kind of by following whatever the trend is at the time, unless you have something really unique that you're doing. But everybody just kind of copies like editing style. And most of the people that are popular online nowadays don't even like edit YouTube videos. They just put out clips of whatever their VOD was on Twitch or on Kick or whatever that is. And then because they're big enough, people will still watch their channel anyway. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting. You kind of have to get big off a name and then have people watch that content consistently instead of like just actually putting out unique content, because it kind of just gets lost in the mix of everything.
It's interesting to see somebody like I Show Speed, because Speed, when he was a minor, he would like overreact and be
Yeah.
really hyperbolic and crazy, kind of like KSI
Yeah,
in
back
the
in the
UK
day.
whenever he was doing the same thing when he was a young guy. But as soon as Speed became an adult, you see him acting way different, and he obviously scaled up in the amount of people that follow him as well.
Yeah.
But now he's got like full team walking around him with live rig, and they go all these places. Like we saw him come through Phoenix and was hanging out with like Devin Booker's
Yeah,
warehouse. What do you
pretty
think about
crazy.
that warehouse?
Oh, it was super sick. And he came through, I think he was on the ASU campus for like
Yeah, with
30
you guys.
minutes or something like
Yeah,
that.
he
But I was
mentioned
on this side of town, so I didn't get to see him, but it's cool.
Speed, huge name. I know we were just watching something. My daughter and Amelia and I were watching Dude Perfect, and they said that he came through their warehouse in Dallas when he rolled through with them, or outside Dallas, I think is where they're at. But he rolled through there and said, "What's up to those guys?" And he's just tagging place to place to place with his stream. But man, it was wild to see the crowds at ASU. There was like 50,000 people or some crazy
Yeah.
noise, just like running around watching them live. It's like a sea of people just following a streamer
know.
live.
It's crazy.
And that was not even online. That was just like physically in
Yeah.
person watching them out the windows and all the buildings around, and huge crowd. Pretty crazy.
That was what was kind of crazy when we were in South Korea and Thailand and in those places. Just as we were in some of the malls and those bigger areas, there would just be these massive crowds of people, and you'd be like, "What?" And what was the funniest one that I thought was there. All of these people were watching 4 girls put on makeup.
Yes.
And
yeah, at the
it
malls
was
at
like-
Siam. Yeah.
It was like
Siam Paragon.
just people, and you saw like as you're getting close, you see people like running past you, like
Yeah.
there's royalty, or
Yes.
and it's 4 people putting on makeup, and
Yeah.
it's wild.
Yeah, they were South Korean, like whatever, Instagram / YouTube influencers, and that's what they're in the makeup space, and so they sell makeup and all this. They're super famous. Man, there was a massive crowd, and we thought, oh man, someone crazy. Like we thought it was gonna be this, like a boy band, or because they have that. We've seen that too there
Yeah.
in Thailand. But man, to see those girls do that, we were blown away.
Yeah,
Huge online following.
yeah, it's crazy.
Pretty wild. Javen, Kai Sinat he's a big
Oh, yeah.
streamer, big guy, also Christ follower. I heard he turned down, I don't know if this is verifiable, but it said that he turned down Nike because Nike was asking him not to talk about his faith on stream, and
Yeah.
he's no longer sponsored by Nike because he wouldn't agree.
Yeah, I heard about something about that too. I think it was in the last 2 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if that's true, I mean, that's huge for him, because he is like, you could argue he's the biggest streamer in the world as far as in the US, and on Twitch, he definitely has the biggest following out of anybody. I think he just broke the record for having 1 million subs on Twitch, and he's like the first guy to ever do it. He broke every single record in the book with his live stream that lasted like a month straight. They called it
Wow.
was it the Mafia-thon? I think
Okay.
so. I think it was the 3rd one that he did. But yeah, they just kept breaking records every time. But I mean, huge ups to that guy if that is true. But once again, you never really know the truth.
Yeah, that could be. I do like that he, obviously no one's perfect and he's running, they're living life and do whatever, but you don't see him overtly doing anything that would be of faith. Like, he might say something out of pocket or something, but people say that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas I would see like him be more aligned in his actions and how he's encouraging to people and all that stuff. I do see a lot of that with him, and he'll even share like his favorite scripture verses and other things like that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
Sure.
I was thinking about that with the idea of like streaming overnight. Is like, okay, what other things would you be willing to be streamed if you only had to pay $1 to do it? What do you think? Would you like go and eat like some crazy stuff, or like would you go like some big adventure, like try something wild?
I think so. I think pretty much just anything but being in the bathroom. I think that's like the only thing that I think you need, like your private space.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
But anything else, I mean, it's pretty much public anyway at this point. Like, people are always on their phones everywhere. So if there's someone watching you, whether or not it's public.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you're feeling like they're going to turn on your cameras running no matter what, and like someone's watching, someone's got a view.
Well, I mean, like even with like microphones, they can still pick up everything that you're saying. I mean, that's where you get like targeted ads and stuff.
Of course.
So like, and the fact that we have a camera that's always pointed at you in some way when you're looking at your phone like this, I mean, there's no way that there's not some sort of recording or some sort of like tracking on what's happening over there. At least that's what
true.
I think.
No, it's totally true. I think they've, you can do that. Everyone's done that. The test where you say something that you don't normally have. Like, let's say you don't have a dog, and we grabbed Angus's phone. He doesn't have a dog. We have a dog, family dog. But, we grab Angus's phone and we start saying, dog food, and it'll like eventually pick it up and start showing him ads for something that he doesn't even have because he was in proximity to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But we see that all the time. And even though I like always go through and give all my preferences, I only do the absolute necessary and I decline everything else. It's my default setting. I always do that and go through settings every new website. It's a lot of work, man, to do that. You're like, this is a pain. But it's like that way you're not just tracked on every single thing. It's just crazy trying to navigate out here in the digital world,
Yeah.
Trying to stay out of pocket, It's a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
We saw something interesting talking about your phone and being so connected to it. We were talking about this in staff meeting today. But there's a channel on YouTube called Yes Theory, and they have a concept called Seek Discomfort. So they'll have like challenges where they go to a place and they won't have any money, and they try to like survive overnight and like be fed and housed for free, and like people will invite them in and let them stay on the floor or stay in a bed. It's pretty amazing like how warm people are. But they did that challenge like in a new country, but they did it with no phone. So these are guys that are like 30. So like they didn't grow up with some of the other stuff, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But they didn't grow up with all these things. So they like they left their phones at home and then flew to this place. And then their other friends that met them there, they asked them if they'd be willing to join them. And they had a clamshell, like it's a thing where you put your phone in, you put how much time, and then you lock it in there, and it doesn't get out. Like it's in there. So you physically have your phone. You could see it. It's inside the case, but it's locked inside. So these guys are like getting in a car, and they're like, "Cool, where are we going?" Like they don't have any directions. They don't know which direction they're pointed. Like they have no idea which way they're going.
Oh.
I think I might be okay. You might be okay.
Yeah.
Even with like, you've had less travel, but still some travel. But you have skill set.
I was, yeah.
Jabo, how would you do? You've grown up around the world. You've traveled a grip, but you've always had tech.
I just think it depends on where I am. If I'm in an Asian country, I'll get lost like real fast.
Okay.
But I mean, I think if you were to take me to like Europe or the Middle East, I think I'd be fine.
Okay. Just because of cultural understanding and experience?
I think so. And it's also just because like relatively those places are like similarly built in some fashion.
Okay.
But yeah, the language barrier is also not that insane.
Right.
But yeah, like in an Asian country, I would have no clue what anybody's saying at all. Versus like in Europe, you might be able to tell what they're saying or like get your point across. Or they'll just be like, these Americans. And then, you know how it is.
Well, you studied some French, and obviously you studied some Arabic, so you have some understanding of culturally how those things operate.
Yeah.
So I think you could go to the right people to figure out the right place.
Yeah.
Or maybe even go to the right deal. So even as we were traveling in South America, could you read the Spanish?
I mean, a little bit. I can't make out like a full sentence, maybe like a few words or two, but like whenever they would start speaking or like delivering a message, yeah, you lost me. I could not understand anything that was happening. I was surprised you kept up, even though you'd been away from Spanish for that long. I was like,
yeah, it's in there. I mean, I lived in Mexico for a season, short, like a long summer, kind of a short, like 4 months. And that was really good. It helped really drive Spanish down. I had studied it in school, like high school and then college, but really drives it down when you have to use it every day and really run it. And then, you kind of replace some of your Spanish with French as we lived in France. My French wasn't really great, but when we lived there, but then we replaced that with Arabic as you kind of start using that more. So you're functional in different languages, but not great in any of them. But as I've got back here, shout out to Pastor Raul Salgado over at Revolution Ministries. Him, Pastor Mario, and some other guys, man, they're always challenging me with Spanish, and they'll speak in Spanish completely, like as we're hanging out. So like really forces me to use it. But you thought it was interesting how you didn't know I could unpack and just like run it?
Well, I knew you could speak Spanish because you told me about it. And you also lived in Mexico, for that season like you were talking about. So I knew you could function. But it's just been because you've been away for that long. I didn't know how it was going to hit you. But you did well. You like kept up with everything they were saying. So yeah, kudos to you.
I think it was pretty funny, like because obviously you have to be in pockets where you're really practicing, and as you focus towards it, I was like really kind of gearing back up, watching things in Spanish, so I could really just like track. But one of our friend Alberto, one of his girls, when we were in Kenya a year ago, about this time. We were hanging out with Annabella, and everyone in the car spoke Spanish. So it's like Raul and Albert and everybody else. They all speak Spanish, first language Spanish speakers. So I'm the only non-native Spanish speaker that's there. But Annabella gets in the car, and she speaks Spanish and English, and she speaks Arabic and some other stuff, and probably even some Swahili and some different things. She's very, very bright, and so just like Zoe. And so she gets in the car, and we're just speaking in Spanish, and I'm speaking to her in Spanish. And then she's clocking, she's going along with it. She just turns to me, and she goes, "Uncle Jay, you speak Spanish?" It's just so funny, man. And I was like, some Spanish, babe. I speak some Spanish. So funny. But she was just laughing. Hey, what was it that Raul was trying to teach you this summer? We were
oh my gosh,
traveling.
Dude, he was trying to explain. I think it was like he told me remember two phrases. The first one was what was the first one? I forget, man.
How old are you?
Yeah. ¿Cuántos años tienes?
Yes.
And the second one was something about WhatsApp. I think it was like, ¿qué es su número de WhatsApp? Or something like that. It was so funny. He would just keep driving it home every single day and always ask me if I'd asked anybody that question.
He was trying to tell you that you needed a Christian Shakira. We went to Colombia. We were in Medellin, so that's where she's from. There's like as soon as you walk out of the airport, there's a big massive billboard has Shakira right on it. And so he's like, "You need a Christian Shakira, Javan. We're gonna learn with these two phrases."
Yeah.
Because we were speaking for youth, like we were speaking for young people, so it was like teenagers all the way up to college and stuff. So there was a bunch of them there. So I don't know, did you use your phrases?
No, not at all. Sorry, Raul.
Next time you go, you can borrow one of my hats.
Oh yeah, there you go.
that'll get you. That'll bring you home a wife.
Dude, that's true. Actually, we were talking about this on a previous pod, but when Angus is traveling through Asia, man, we was rocking this amazing hat that we got in Nepal, and people were stopping him like he was an actual sultan. It was wild.
It was a traditional hat from Tibet, and so it's got the fox fur, and it's a very cool hat. It was great. I could have come home with a wife.
That's probably true. Pretty amazing. Well, I was thinking about like how digital everything has gotten, and so it actually leads people to be searching for experiences. So it's the kind of as you're pushed so much one direction, you start looking out this other way. One of the things I thought was interesting, I saw this thing on Instagram. It said that there's a place called Mount Tai in Shandong, China. It's 1,500 meters high, so it doesn't seem overly high, but it's definitely high. But I want to show you guys what this thing looks like, and we'll throw this in post a little bit later. But scroll over just a couple photos and take a look at how tall this thing is. This thing is wildly tall. It's super duper steep. And they say that you will hike for the first 2.5 hours just to get to the ticket office. And they say that people, they start shaking. They're holding the handrails because their muscles are just shaking as they go. And so they're holding the handrails of doing this stuff. And that eventually, as you could see on there, there's some very strapping young Chinese bucks, man, that are down there that have been doing all the push-ups. So they're over there wearing their glasses. They will pick you up. Firemen carry you up the mountain.
Dude.
Which is pretty crazy. They'll firemen carry you, or even just carry you cradle in their arms. Either way, but I've seen both versions, and they will do it up the way. Which
how American is that?
How crazy is that?
Carry me up those steps while I eat a bucket of chicken.
That would be pretty wild. But man, it is steep stairs. When I was thinking about that, I was like, man, that's the kind of challenge that I would love to jump into. So here's the thing. I was with my friend Brandon. Shout out to him. And we were in Mumbai in India. And so he had a couple days off. We were like there over a long weekend. So he had to work when I first flew in. So he's like, hey, here's the spot. Get to my place, blah, blah, blah. And gave me all the rundown. So I got over there. No big deal. Got in and squared away. And he's like, I got to go run to work. I was like, cool. So he goes to work and do this thing. So I'm like kind of mucking about and checking out around there. Nothing too far. Just coffee, whatever. Then we start going on adventures. So we go like to this, like an island that's all these caves that are done up, and it's all like a big massive temple carved out of caves. And there's other areas where you do these big massive hikes up these mountains. We go, and it's just like this, with it's like all these people, huge lines of people going up the line, and you could pay 4 people to put you like a sultan on a cart, carry you on their shoulders up the mountain like this. And you sat in the seat, and that's who was there. Big fat Westerners, man, just
Of course.
chilling. They didn't have a big thirst buster or like a big Yeti or anything, but they could have. And they were just chilling. And these dudes they're not very big guys, but they're strong from doing it. But they're carrying them up the mountain, dude. I was like, this is wildness.
That's great.
Yeah, it's a country of wiry people, just like
strong and tenacious.
Yeah.
That's it. I thought it was pretty crazy. I was like, man. So do you guys think you do Mount Tai and Shandong? What do you think? Would you be game?
I would try going up if I could not feel bad about taking the guys to carry me down.
Yeah, they called like people with stretchers and stuff too to come get people.
Oh my gosh.
It's like a ski slope.
I'd like to try it at least.
Yeah.
Got to leave at least enough in the tank to get back.
For sure. I know Javen's answer is yes.
Yeah.
But the question is, would you stretch first?
So you got me there, because I might not stretch first.
As the dad, I'm always trying to tell Javen, listen, boy, you need to stretch before. He's like in it's club soccer and varsity soccer all 4 years. He can run, but I was like, you need to stretch, man. Your muscles are gonna kill you later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the thought of trying to push yourself up that many flights of stairs. It's like just doing a Stairmaster for like 3 hours straight. I think your legs they just give out all the time.
That's it. It's the lactic acid in your muscles. You just get locked in, where it's like that's where they start to do the starts to shake and stuff like that.
Dude.
To that point, my question is there a really good restaurant up there? Because I need a motivator. I mean, if I'm gonna get up there to take a picture, I could buy a postcard probably at the base of the thing. But if there's some really good food up at the top, I'd be, where I can replace the electrolytes, of course. But,
some handmade noodles.
Yeah.
Hot broth in a bowl.
But there's got to be a motivator to get me up all those steps. At least give me a slinky once I get to the top that I can chase back down.
Could you imagine you get all the way to the and it stops on the stair right before the ground? You're like, start it again. Run it back.
Oh, it reminds me of Ace Ventura.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. That's definitely the takeaway from Ace Ventura. Which hilariously, Angus and I, this is questionable parenting, but both Angus and I have like showed terrible '90s movies to our sons, and so Javen has seen some ridiculous movies from the '90s, but you've never seen that one.
What, Ace Ventura?
Yeah.
Well, you and I were watching it the other day.
We were watching it, but then like
I fell asleep.
You fell asleep, and I had to go finish emails, so I didn't
okay.
finish it either. So I paused it wherever we were in the stack. But yeah, yeah, it's like I'm trying to explain Ace Ventura. It's like I'm not going to do it any justice. You have to kind of watch that.
So my dad was a huge Jim Carrey fan, so we saw it when it was in the theater, and I don't remember exactly how. I mean, that was one of like 3 movies I ever saw with my dad in the theater.
Wow.
Because he was not a fan of movies, but we definitely saw those. And so I was like, well, I was this age when I saw it. So when my kids were that age, I was like, hey guys, let's watch this. And within the first few minutes, I was like,
Yep.
Maybe I should reconsider what we're.
Yeah, that's probably a good, be passable parenting thing. Probably not passable pastoral.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that we have to walk both those lines. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Yep.
All right, so here's a question I want to ask you guys. We're talking about experiences versus tech and how tech is taking everything over. So we just kind of got into it a little bit, but these skills are disappearing. How many of these skills can you do? I'm guessing that, Angus, you're probably going to rock all these. You have a lot of skill sets. Javen, I'm interested with you because it's not necessarily been taught to you.
Yeah.
If you know how to do these, not that you couldn't learn to do them, can you currently do them? So, all right, these are skills that are disappearing. Can you write in cursive?
Yes.
I can, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Where did you learn to write in cursive?
I had to do it for French. I want to say in like 6th grade. I don't know why they taught it to us. But I think they said it was supposed to be like the formal way, but nobody in French like writes like that anymore. I think they just like print everything out. So, but that's where I learned it.
So you learned to cursive, and that's cool because most people your age, I would say, probably don't.
Yeah, no, like I would say as far as like if you go to like a prep school or like a charter school, you probably know how to do it just because they teach them at such a young age. But like if you go to, well, actually I might have learned it in public school too. But I don't think they have you keep writing in cursive. They just teach you the letters and then kind of just like let you do whatever. And
then most of it's keyboard from then on, right? Like just typing and like everything you did is pretty much word processing.
Well, nowadays it is, but back then everything was still on paper. When I was like, I want to say 7, 8, I think they started introducing like Chromebooks from the time you were in like
5th grade.
Yeah, something like that. And then you like are almost full time on a computer like as soon as you hit high school. At most schools now.
Do any of your friends do calligraphy?
I don't think so. Even the artists, I don't think they do calligraphy. They just like paint and do whatever.
Which we had people like lettering back in the day was a big deal. Like there were people really good at it. Like they do my initials on my notebook or whatever. Like that was a vibe, right?
Yeah, yeah. I did a little bit of calligraphy, because my mom had a few of the calligraphy pens and stuff. So I'd like to play with all that stuff. Yeah.
I figured you might have done it because of your Scottish roots and all the old English kind of influence.
Well, in making props and stuff like that, we've had to make scrolls and stuff that you roll out, you want it to look fairly authentic and things like that. So we have done that kind of a thing.
That's awesome.
In the past too.
I like that. All right, skill number 2: read an analog clock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Javen's like, yeah, no big deal. But dude, like the younger generation, like your sisters and them, they have more of a struggle to it.
I know. I was so surprised. Shiloh showed me her homework one time, and it was like, oh yeah, they're just gonna have you read an analog clock. I think she was like in 8th grade or something. I was like, no way they're doing this at this age. But like genuinely, she didn't know what was happening during something. I was like. I'm so surprised.
When I worked at the K-8 school that I was at, they on all their TVs they had digital time.
Oh.
And so when I was in the J-High side of it, several of the teachers, they would turn their TVs off and put an analog where the clock should be. Whoa. Or right next to it, and they're like, if you want to know what time you're out of here, you better learn how to read analog.
Read a clock.
And so it was a big motivator, but most of them couldn't read it still. Like it was still not. So they'd come up to you and say, hey, what time is it? Clock is right there.
That's right there.
Well, I don't know what it says.
That's crazy.
That's your problem. That it starts on, and so you'd explain to a 6th, 7th, 8th grader exact, okay, it starts and counting 5s.
Yep.
I have to do all that. Like, well, you know what 7 times 5 is, right? I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. Like, you don't have to actually count all the little tick marks,
That's right.
But some of them, man, it was like, no, I just don't want
to. Oh, yeah. It's interesting. Like even my digital watch, I have set as an analog face. Yeah. It's just natural, like how I think of a wristwatch. I still have it, even though it does all the other doodads, and you can clearly do a digital one. I always have mine set the other way because I'm just natural to think about that. But that's gonna be interesting as this generation gets up to that. I wonder how the Swiss watch industry is gonna survive.
Oh, that's a good question.
Or if you're bougie enough, you've learned the skill set, so you don't have to worry about it. So
true.
Interesting. All right.
It'll just become decoration that they have no idea what it is. It's just like a bracelet.
Oh, what time is it? I don't know. This is just
it's a bracelet that
status.
Moves.
Yeah, this is a status marker. That's true. That's very true. Okay, so yeah. All right. Third one: use a physical map.
Yep.
I don't think I've ever done it besides for like a zoo. So maybe not for streets. I don't know. I'd have to try it, but I haven't really tried.
So there's streets, and then there's topographical maps, which is a whole other. That's a whole other deal. So I had to do topographical maps in Boy Scouts. So I've had
you're an Eagle Scout.
Yeah, so I've had to do all those. Now I don't say I'm great at it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty rusty, and I absolutely do use my navigation function on my phone because why not?
Sure.
But if the EMP comes and wipes it all out, I can still find
paper.
I can still hopefully find some of the underground tunnels that they've got.
There you go.
I bought those for my car when I was young, and then bought them even as an adult. Later on I bought those things and had them in there, just a big fat, like road atlas kind of fat spiral bound book that you could use, because it's such a skill set that if your phone is dead and you got no juice and your car is dead, it's like, dude, you got to understand where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I learned was interesting was how to navigate underwater as you're doing scuba, and you have to know how to run a map, but and topographical because you're basing off where you're going, but it's also your kick cycle. You have to know how far you can go in this water, what the distance is, so that you can do the math to understand your oxygen versus your burn rate versus your kick cycle. So you start to do this whole thing to see, like, if people were like, where can we get to the boat that's picking us up?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you have to figure out versus, the flow of water, like,
Sure.
pushing against you. Are you going with or against it? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because that's going to have a big difference in
Whole
how far you go.
different way to pace yourself, man.
Especially if you're at night.
Yeah.
So one thing is visibility in the day. If you're at visibility at night, completely different thing. So we've done night dives where you're going down to dive off of something. It's a totally different animal. Like, if you're not paying attention, like one of the dives I did in the Red Sea, I just got concerned. I ended up getting sick to my stomach. I was 60 feet down. I ended up throwing up through my regulator. So I took it out of my mouth and threw up and then re-cleared. I'm 60 feet down. You can't rush to the top. You'll get the bends. So you have to like clear, and then just keep breathing. You have to keep your wits about you because you're heaving, but you need to breathe. So I cleared out. Everything was in my stomach. Got sick. Threw it all up. So of course the fish come. They're excited. They're like, free meal. McDonald's is here, whatever they get. And so, I'm clearing my regs, like trying to breathe and trying to stay in the pocket. And then at the same time, you start to lose your bearings of where you are because you're starting to get lightheaded, all this stuff. So you're like, you have to keep, okay, I got it. I'm cool. I'm all right. Check my gauge, make sure I was cool with my air. And then I went up and I realized I had less than 5. So I told my instructor, I only got 5 left. And he's like, okay, go up. And I didn't realize that we had already kick cycled back to the boat. And like, that's how far, like I was like concerned about living. So I had lost my navigation, and I was thankful that I was, I stayed in the pocket with those guys, because then I was able to be safe. But I was like, man, for a second there, it would have been real sketchy.
Oh man.
So thankful that I could, be with people that knew where they were going.
Absolutely.
Knew how to run a map. So
that's how I felt with you in Thailand. Because, going just real quick back to that point, like, I think that like reading the signs, when you're in a place where it's characters versus letters, a whole different ball game.
For sure.
And so when I was with you in Thailand, I was like, I just wanted to hold on to your coat and make sure. I would have completely worn one of those little bracelet thingies that has a leash, just so that, because I'm the same height as everybody there. And so it was so great.
It's pretty true.
Traveling with somebody who was tall, because I could find you in the crowd and just know that I'm following the tall guy.
It's so funny. That's how I feel about, shout out to Pastor Dana. That's how I feel about Dana, because Dana's tall.
Same.
So you can find Dana, you're
Same
like,
thing.
where's Dana? To see if people, oh, there's Dana.
Yeah,
There he is.
100%.
That's really funny, man. Yeah, being able to navigate those places is pretty good. Man, it makes me think about this before we get off this topic. Javen, when you went back to France, when you lived there, you grew up there when you were 2 to the time you were 6. But we lived in a little village just outside Paris. So I did all my meetings in Paris. But then when you went back to there, whenever this is like 2 years ago when you were back.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience. That's pretty crazy.
Oh, dude, it was so wild. It was like, I remembered all these locations from when I was small. So like, I remembered what the matronelle looked like. I remember what her house looked like. And I remember you would like kind of go to this town square that had like a fountain. I'm not going to talk about mom's story because I know she doesn't want to get embarrassed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Celeste slipped and fell in some ice, and there was a whole situation around that. But yeah, it's no big deal. No big deal.
But yeah, and I remember there was also like a bakery that we would go to and things like that. But it was just crazy. As soon as I stepped off the train, I could like visualize everything from the time I was small, and I would just follow this path that I like knew how to go through, like from the time I was like 3 to 6. It was crazy. So then everything just hit me like all at once, and I was like, dude, that's pretty crazy that you've had this in your memory for the last for me it was like 10 years when I went back, because it was 22 when we went back,
or 23. Yeah, it's like you were like a couple years ago.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, it was incredible, man. You just like have this entire visualization of everything that's just existed inside of you, and then once you get back, it's back.
It'll unlock the
That's
map
cool.
in your head.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
It's so wild, man. He was telling me about that. And we were watching him. Celeste and I are stepping back. It's like, well, obviously, we know where we're going. We're adults and we live there. So it's like not like we forgot. So, you know, we knew we were going, but we were watching him. And he's like, yeah, and this is here. And this, he's just explaining it all. We're like, that's right, dude. Like, that's right.
Wow,
It was
that's very
really interesting to see him unlock. It reminded me of like whenever we were young and we used to play like Call of Duty or Counter-Strike or Halo or something. And you'd have a map that you hadn't played for a while, or maybe they went away in the last version, and then they reintroduce it, and you're like, I know this map. You know what I mean? Because it's like your brain will like click, click, and you just like put it back in the
Yep, there's
file.
a guy right around this corner, and
Exactly.
uh-huh.
Exactly right. So that was pretty interesting. Okay, so use a physical map. So we're doing pretty good. All right, memorize phone numbers. How do you guys do on remembering people's phone numbers?
I can if I have to. I still have a few memorized, you know, from pre-cell phone days.
Okay. Do you
know?
really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good. Pretty good, pretty good. Javen, do you have anything memorized?
I have yours and mom's memorized, but
Okay.
besides that, there's really no use for me to memorize the numbers.
Okay.
Just because I literally always have my phone on me.
Yes.
So, I mean, just different age, I guess.
That's true. Do you think you could do it?
I think so. I think I can memorize numbers well enough. And because everybody has the same area code, you just have to like keep a few area codes in the back of your mind. Like here, just like 623, 480, and 602. And then you pretty much have everybody's number. You just have to learn like the last 7 digits and you're okay.
That is unless, of course, your friend got his cell phone whenever he lived in Tucson. And though he's lived up here for over 15 years, he still has a 520 area code number.
Oh,
That would be
my
Angus.
gosh.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And for the longest time, like whatever, I don't know why, but I would switch over and it'd be like, it wouldn't have his name pop up, which is stupid. He was in my phone, but it wouldn't pop up. And he'd be like, 520. I was like, who's from 520 calling me? And it was him.
Yeah.
Which is the classic, that's how people it is, man. They don't let go of their number just because they move from place to place. Now they just hold on to it and it doesn't matter.
Well, in that way, because it transfers with you and all that. I mean, you can keep in track with people from 20 years ago and all that stuff. And so there is an advantage. I mean, and then I know people who change their phone number like they change their socks.
That's true,
You know,
too.
and it's like you're every 2-3 weeks you're getting another text saying, "Hey, I got this new phone number." You know,
You're just running a burner all the time.
Yep.
Who you hiding from? Who are
Yeah,
you
yeah,
really?
yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Back in the day, man, we used to have like crazy amounts of phone numbers memorized. I remember I had like, I want to say like 70 or 80 phone numbers that like I could just like pop off top. Because when you're young, you had pager numbers and home phone numbers. So even like your top 30 friends, you'd maybe know both. And sometimes they might have a mom and a dad's phone number because they have different, you know, their mom and dad are separate. So you would have to know, like, if it's your best friends, like you'd have like all those on deck too. So it was crazy that you could just fire them off. I came across a cheat sheet like a long time. This is like probably 10 years ago now. But I came across a cheat sheet that I'd had when I was young. It used to live in my wallet. And it was like a folded piece of paper, had everybody's names, and then had their like pager, like home phone, blah, blah, blah. Nobody had mobile back then. So I had all these numbers, and it was crazy how as soon as I opened it, and like it was like you're talking about your map for I was like, oh, like it just came flooding back. Like
you can,
those
because I had a little name book
Yeah.
that was the same thing. It was like a little black book kind of thing. Because I was like, well, I want a little black book too, even though I didn't have everybody's names in it. But it's, you know, you remember the characters that you wrote around it and everything, and referencing those phone numbers visually so many times was really easy to get them.
That's right. Get it in your head.
But now you just tell Siri who you want to call. She doesn't even show you the phone number.
Sure.
She shows you their picture. And you know,
Yeah, exactly.
we're not too far off from idiocracy.
No,
I think.
it's true. And you know, one of the things that's interesting about that is like I realized after having grown up that way with so many numbers, dude, I don't have Jabin's phone number memorized. Shiloh's, Amelia's, like Celeste and I, of course, work and other ones like that. You know, my parents are the ones that haven't moved for a long time. I have all their numbers in my head. But yeah, these ones that we got later, because he's had 5 phone numbers because of moving countries and different stuff. And so I'm like, I don't have it memorized. It just lives in my phone.
Yeah.
Say call Javen.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a crazy thing. Okay, mental math with double digits. Can you do mental math with double digits?
Yeah.
Not
I know
well.
you can. You're like a math savant, so that's
Yeah.
pretty easy for you. You're just like,
If I have to, not well, it may have to involve a gun somewhere pointed at my skull.
So it unlocks.
But, yeah.
For sure.
but I'm definitely not going to volunteer and be the one who says, "Ooh, let me I'll solve that problem for you."
Well, this is not a quiz. I'm not asking
Yeah,
you a certain
no,
number,
no.
so you don't have to prove
So I
it,
mean, I
but-
could lie to you and say, "Absolutely, I'm great at
I'm
it."
very good. 10 times 10, 100. Won it. I'm good. Successful. Yeah, it was never those or increments of 5 or 2. It's like those are always really easy. It's always when you get like 17 times 17, you're like, wait, what? And you carry the 2s and you do all this thing. You start running away like that. But whenever you start getting into that stuff, it always makes it a little harder. So that was like back in the day, we all did that. None of us had a calculator on our phone. So you couldn't just do it real quick or ask, whatever your Siri or whoever that person is that you're asking. She comes on my phone. Say,
I remember when I got one of those Casio calculator watches, dude. I was hot stuff.
That was hot stuff.
That was still when we had the timed math tests, and I would just kind of hide that in my pocket, and when I'd run into a problem, I just beep, beep, beep.
That's right, totally right. Oh, that's so funny.
Oh yeah.
But the thing was they messed with you because those Casio ones were super loud. Unless you turned your sound function off, then your alarms weren't work. But if you turned it off to do you'd be like beep 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 beep.
Yeah.
super.
I was 100% willing to be late, if it improved my math test score, so I had the sound off.
There you go. You're just slowly covering your hand and just doing it. You had to keep the one fingernail long so you could tap on those tiny buttons. Exactly. Above and behind your head. For those that aren't watching, Angus is acting it out. He's using his skills as an actor. There it is. All right. Drive a manual car.
Learned on one.
Yeah, I learned on one. Very cool. Javen, you ever driven a manual car?
No, only driven automatic.
I thought about that. I was like, we haven't had one since you've been a driver because you've only been driving a couple years. So, yeah, man, you haven't had a chance to really learn that, huh?
No. I have a friend who does. He drives a Z4 and it's like manual. But yeah, the learning curve, even for him, was like, it was bad. Like, he would just stall a lot the first few weeks. But then after that, he's been fine since.
Yeah, you get it. Once you get it, which is, it's like I learned, driving manual. So you learn how to do that. You can drive anything. Mm-hmm. I heard a comedian say, man, if you want to not worry about your car getting stolen, just drive a manual car. Like no one knows how to. None of the young generation who start robbing cars don't know how to drive it. So just pull up, leave it in neutral, throw your parking brake, and you're good to go.
That actually happened out here in the West Valley a couple of times. I remember when I was right out of high school that there was a string of people who had their cars broken into because the person who was breaking into it couldn't steal the manual transmission. So he'd break into them and find out, oh, this is a stick. I can't do that one. And then he would take the automatic, Wow. So I remember that. And so my dad said, see, this is why you learn.
That's amazing.
That you can steal all the cars.
I was in Cyprus a couple weeks ago. It's great to be back with friends, Tony and Jamie. Shout out to them and I Heart Cafe and I Heart Coffee, to Tim and the whole crew that's a part of that in India and in the States. But they're amazing friends. We went to visit them in 2018 when Javen was young. We still lived in Egypt at the time, so we were coming across from Egypt through Turkey or somewhere in Europe, I think maybe Athens, and then on to Cyprus. By the time we got there, it was late into the evening, so like everything's kind of shut down. We need to get to an Airbnb. So I was tired. I'd been running and gunning to get there. And I'm like, okay. So like we got this rental car. It was a nice car. It was like BMW, SUV type thing. We got, 3 kids. We're putting them in there, all the suitcases. I load all the stuff and finally go in. I go to get in the driver's side. And Celeste is sitting in the left-hand side front. And she goes, no, baby, it's right-hand drive. And I'm like, what? It was like a wave of fear came over me because I had driven right-hand side, but you have to drive manual. This is a manual car, so you're driving manual while you're driving on the other side of the road, which is fine. You can do it. You just have to like commit and realize the driver's always in the center of the road, no matter which side. If you're driving on the left side or the right side, the driver's always in the center. That way you don't drive on the wrong side. Mm-hmm. But man, roundabouts are super hard because we do roundabouts even here. They put a bunch in America, and we did a ton in Europe. But Europe's left-hand side drives, just like it is in the States, unless you're in the UK. And so we've been in UK countries, and that's when I've had a chance to drive those other sides. But, man, it messes with you so bad.
Yeah.
You're just like,
yeah, it does.
You're like, oh, this is backwards. You've had a chance to drive right-hand?
Well, I drove in the UK. I can't remember which side they drive on.
Yeah, they're on the right, for sure. So they're opposite of us.
Yeah, so I got to drive there, but I wasn't driving in the city. My dad wouldn't let me drive in the city because he was on the rental agreement.
Okay,
so
got it.
It was once we got up into northern Scotland when there was only sheep to hit. You know? So,
Speed bumps, you say? Fuzzy speed
Yeah.
bumps. Yes.
yeah, exactly.
Something you turn into a stew. I got you. Very
Yep.
good. Can you sew?
Yes.
Okay.
No, not at all. Not at all.
No salvation on that.
I have not the slightest clue of how to do it whatsoever. Like, you could give me all the materials, couldn't do it at all.
Yeah, you'd have to watch YouTube to get it going.
I mean, even then, I'm not an arts and craftsy kind of person, or like I don't think I could do it, man. It would take so long.
So if you pop one of the buttons off your nice dress shirt, your polo shirt, do you think you can sew it back on?
No, I'm taking it somewhere, man. I can't do it. I can't do it.
That's honest. That's
Bring
honest.
it to me. I'll teach you how.
There
It's
you go.
very
There you
simple.
go.
It's very simple.
right.
So I was a Boy Scout, and so I had to sew on all my own patches for my merit badges and things
Okay.
like that. So I had to learn. And recently, actually, I just re-sewed my couches back together. The cushions came apart.
Did you really?
And I was so sick of the split seam look. So I
Wow.
ordered some upholstery needles and looked up a video on YouTube and stitched it back together with that and some super glue. And man, it's been holding like it's factory.
That's
great.
awesome.
Yeah.
We, we're around a lot of jackets. I'm preaching, and they're not like dress jackets. They're typically like jean jackets or leather jackets or bomber jackets, stuff like that. So I have a whole bunch of jackets. For living in Arizona, I have way too many jackets for being an Arizona guy. Phoenix guy. People in northern Arizona, they need jackets, but Phoenix guy, a lot of jackets. But on my jean jackets, a lot of them, we had patches with Cornerstone, our Cornerstone C on them. And so I had a bunch of I had patches made, and we use them for all sorts of stuff for people. We have them for our cafe has them on our aprons and different things. And so I've made them available to a lot of people, but I've sewed them on all my jean jackets. So as I'm preaching, I have like a Cornerstone little thing on my jackets. People were like, "You got these custom?" I was like, no, I just sewed them on. They're like, "You can sew?" Like there's a special power or something. I was like, "That's right. I'm sewing, man.
Yeah.
You know, like I can do something normal." So
Well, so when I was in theater, you do costumes and stuff, and so being the Estrella Wars was a huge thing, which was kind of like it was an underground Renaissance festival,
that's
and
cool.
so it was like with all the Society for Creative and Acting. So it was a less commercial thing, and it was held out at Estrella Park, and so like there was this huge. If you weren't in costume, you were like, I guess the term would be muggle.
yeah, no, I went to it and not in costume, and people were like, "Mm-mm."
Yeah, and so all of my friends would always go in costume, and they always made their own costume. So I got really good at so I made my own cloak and all of that kind of stuff. So
Wow.
yeah,
I need a preaching cloak.
yeah,
So,
we could all wear capes. I could make us all capes. It'd be great.
oh wow, we probably would have hit some weird demographic of people that are big into that somehow. Talk about attracting a group. That'd be an interesting one. All right, last two things here. Use a radio. Can you use an actual radio while you dial it in?
Yeah, not a ham radio. No, I can't do ham radio, but I
Okay.
can do just a regular.
Radio.
Mhm.
Javen, have you ever used a radio?
Yes, I've never
Analog-
worked with one, but like
analog
I guess
radio.
if I knew the station, that I think so. Because I won in my car technically,
Yeah.
but I've never used like one of the prop ones that you're talking about. So we'll see.
I like how you say one of the prop ones, like it's not an actual radio.
Not like one of the ones that you prop up, not that
Okay, yeah,
don't
yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
Even though no one really uses them anymore, but
I mean, people listen to the radio all the time, but most of them are using a digital transceiver,
Yeah,
which is what you're
exactly.
saying. So you just put in which of the numbers is, and it goes to it, or you scroll and scan, and it automatically picks
Yeah.
them up. So that is a little different. As I was travel a lot, especially when I was missionary itinerating and traveling and speaking. I was in a rental car all the time, so I jump in, and naturally it was before your phone could sync. You had to have like different stuff that did that before all the new cars do that naturally. So you would always be looking for radio stations, and it would always be turned to some random radio station that the people that work there want to listen to. So you'd always be looking for something else. So you always be scanning through it, and depending on which version of a car you got, was whether or not you're doing it analog or digital.
Yeah.
So
I remember my great grandmother had a tube radio.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that had the tubes. Have you ever even seen one of those?
not by what you're
Dude,
describing.
you've got to look it
yeah,
up.
it's pretty cool.
They're
It
very
look
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
So like it almost looked like light bulbs inside of it that when you turn it on,
Oh,
these
okay.
tubes would light up and,
Yeah.
and they'd heat up, but it had a
Right.
very distinct smell.
Yeah.
And so like
And
when
sound. It's very
and-
warm.
yes, it had, and I mean there's this hum to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very cool, very nostalgic.
That's
and
cool.
so I like it's one of those things when I think of old radio, that's what I go back and I think of that smell. It's just kind of like a metallic electric smell. It was very cool. Very
That's
unique.
interesting.
Yeah.
Ah, man, I haven't thought about that smell on a radio. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. All right, last one, Morse code. Can you do Morse code still?
I know SOS.
Yeah.
You know, but if I had a decoder sheet, I could get by.
Yeah. But not off the top. Like, you don't know dots and dashes.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Javen?
No, I'm in the same boat. If you gave me like a sheet, maybe, but no, I know no Morse code at all for
Just
no
like-
reason.
So if someone was like, da, 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 you wouldn't, no concept.
No.
You'd be like, cool.
Yeah.
Someone's knocking.
you might be able to discern that they're trying to get a message across. I just
Right.
could not tell you what that message is. So
Oh man, I got you. Okay, that makes sense. All right, something I want to bring to you guys today was this idea of some concepts. Mental mastery is what I called it here. Just some ideas. I want to kind of throw it to you guys and see if you'd heard of it. It's concepts of ways to think about something. We're talking about perspective and decisions determine your destiny, how your perspective affects your emotions, your decisions, and then of course your outcomes or your destiny as it's connected to it. So here's some cool mental mastery ideas to think about. The first concept is called inversion. Solve problems by thinking backward. The example they give here from the Princeton Review says, instead of how can I get healthier, ask what's keeping me unhealthy. What do you guys think about that?
I do that.
Inversion?
I didn't know that there was a term for it. So
There you go.
yeah. So it kind of goes. If you want to cover some of those other ones, wanted to tell you about kind of what I think that 88. It sounds kind of like the ADD brain.
Okay, interesting.
Is that? And so I could tell you my thoughts on that if you wanted.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I've studied the ADD brain just because I took several tests to kind of self-diagnose. One of them said, yeah, you probably do. The other three said, yeah, you definitely do. And so I've studied a lot of that just because I've really had to fight the way just my own brain works.
Okay.
And I've found within the last year and a half, that if you learn how your brain works and you understand how you think, man, you can unlock so much more because you're not fighting your own biology.
Okay, yeah.
And so if I try to think like you, I'm going to drive myself absolutely insane. Not just because of the comparison side of it, because I'm not wired the same way as you.
Correct.
Right. So I see there's a few different types of brain. There's the 2D brain, which is like the bureaucratic brain, the politician brain. We see a problem, we solve it on paper, and then we give it to you to deal with. And so it may work on paper, but not necessarily in the real world. That's 2D thinking.
Got it.
3D is what most people do. They see the problem and then they walk around the problem to try and come up with the solution.
Yeah.
Now, I think that the ADD brain is the 4D brain. So they see the problem and they go and they walk around it, but then they step inside the problem and look out.
Oh, interesting.
And so, but also because of the speed at which they process, they're doing all of that. They're looking at it like a 3D person, coming up with a 2D plan, but also looking from the problem inside out and putting it all together all at the same time. And so I think that that's what happens is that you're using these different kinds of methods in one combination or another. And once you learn how you do these, then it's easier to say, oh, when you come up with a problem that you don't necessarily know how to come up, you know the method by which you can start solving the problem.
Could be more strategic, like be very much focused
And
on what you're trying
work
to do.
it backwards.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome. Javen, inversion, you use that way? A way of thinking?
I mean, a little bit. I would say, like, especially for health and things like that, like what you mentioned. Yeah, it's like if I want to look this way or if I want to like lift this much, then how am I going to do that? By like cutting specific things out.
Okay.
But I think in terms of problems, I think mostly linearly. I'm like, if I want to get to this point, how do I do it from the start? And then I kind of just keep going. But yeah, I wouldn't say I really like invert a whole lot, but that is a way that could work for people. So I totally get that.
So kind of start with the end in mind or kind of thinking that direction, but you're doing it more of a linear thought process. So you're not necessarily backtracking.
Yeah, I would say so. I would just say like I have a whole list of like linear thought process that like I kind of cycle through. I'm like, okay, you could do it this way and then it would end up like this, or you could do it this way and then it would end up like this. But I don't really think backwards a whole lot. I think for some things, but yeah, not generally.
Okay, second mental mastery concept is Hanlon's razor. The concept with Hanlon's razor, or a concept to be able to decipher something, is don't attribute to malice what could be explained by ignorance. And the example they say is your friend didn't text back because they hate you, more likely because they got busy. So it's like, what do you think about that Hanlon's razor?
I operate on that as a base thing, but I didn't. Again, we just called it just assume the best of people.
It's another way to say it.
And that's what we teach our kids. Assume that your sister and brother are not out to get you.
Right.
That the reason that they're bringing that correction to you is because they actually love you,
right,
and not because they have malice. It's because they don't want you to get in trouble from the higher authority.
Exactly.
Which is kind of like a pastor.
There you go. Javan, Hanlon's razor.
I think I just naturally assume the best of people, like especially with what you're talking about for messaging. If like they don't hit me back immediately, or if I like am expecting something from somebody but then they don't respond, I'm usually like, oh, they probably either fell asleep, forgot about something, or whatever. But either way, I mean, it's not like the end of the world most times.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the way you should go about it, because if you're too hypercritical of people, then I think that kind of starts to carry out into your normal life, where you start to judge things like almost as if everything needs to be perfect, but people don't operate like that. And especially as you get older, and like with the season that we have now, where it's like the holidays and everybody has something to be doing.
Sure.
Then yeah, totally. I get why people are busy, or I get why this didn't happen this way or whatever. So
Yeah.
I just do that naturally too, I would say.
That's good. We're talking about a little bit in staff today, this concept of church hurt, and people, or recently amongst us, and even today a little bit. But the concept is with church hurt is that people, obviously, they feel offended in some way, how someone treated them. That's not our intention at all. But I think it comes back to this. It's like, don't think about malice. What could be ignorance? It's like we're being ignorant to what offended you. We didn't know you were offended. So don't think we're trying to do it intentionally. And if, someone didn't message you straight back, or they forgot your birthday, didn't call out of the blue, it's like we probably were busy or doing something. You know what I mean? So it's not intentional in the same way for someone back to us.
For anybody who knows me, they should probably just assume that I typed out the response and never hit send, because that is more often than not my problem. I'll send I'll be right in the middle of it, and I wanted to adjust one little thing and then chase a squirrel and never get back to sending it.
Third concept we'll talk about today, mental mastery, is this idea of Occam's razor. And it's another perspective. It says the simplest explanation is usually the best one. The example they give is if your phone won't charge, it's probably a faulty cable, not your phone's broken charging part. What do you think about that? Occam's razor. Javan?
I think for the most part, that's true. Especially for like really menial tasks that you do, or like things that you're just like kind of random spur of the moment thinking about. That's probably true. I think for like more complex things, like as you think towards like stuff about morality or like questions about politics and stuff, that's not always the case.
Right.
Just because of all the gray area that lies in between really complex problems. But like, yeah, for day-to-day tasks, for sure, that's definitely the way to go about it.
Yeah. Angus?
I agree that is absolutely, the simplest way is probably the best and the fastest. However, for whatever reason, I usually choose the opposite.
It's definitely the phone port.
Even though I know, it's just that skepticism or whatever it is. It's like, nah, it can't be that simple. I've got to tear it apart and check just to make sure.
That's amazing. Yeah, honestly, obviously it's very fun to look into all the conspiracy theories and all that type of stuff. And there's some of the stuff that's come out has been true. But for the most part, these overarching, like theories, you can kind of use Hanlon's razor and Occam's razor to kind of define, like, listen, they're not really trying to be malicious towards you. And really the simplest reason is because, somebody had their own best interest in mind. They're not really trying to mess you over specifically. Mm-hmm. So I think that some of that stuff can really help kind of people have a real grasp of reality sometimes.
Absolutely.
So it's really good. All right. The next concept with mental mastery is opportunity cost. Every choice costs the chance to do something else. Example, cooking dinner probably saves money, but will cost you time. What do you guys think about opportunity cost?
I teach my kids this all the time.
Yep.
I think that's part of just responsible parenting. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, you're going to have to learn it eventually. And sometimes reality is a very hard teacher.
Yep.
So I mean, we go over this all the time. In fact, right now, because we're getting ready to do the show, which goes up, that changes everything. We just, I tell our kids, and then we inform their teachers, look, there's only so much we can do, and we as a family are doing this for the community. And so, it has to fluctuate.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are unwilling to fluctuate, that's I think the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
that makes sense. Javen, what do you think?
Yeah, as far as opportunity cost, I think a lot about it just because, I mean, as a college student, you obviously have like a very limited amount of finance that you're able to work with.
Right.
So for me, I think in amount of time that you have to work with, because you have to couple studying and working and just like if you want to go out and do something or whatever. So I always think about, okay, if I'm doing this now, how much time does that give me later to do this? Or will I be able to do this if I want to do well in school, or if I want to be able to put out a video or something like that? So I'm just always weighing that in my head. And I think as you continue to develop habits over time, it just becomes a natural thing where you choose the best option. But yeah, like as you were saying, instilling that like young in people is definitely the right way to go, because over time it'll just apply to every area of their life, and then they actually do things correctly.
Yeah, it's hard because, obviously, Javen is grown, but he's a young man who's adulting. And as his dad, I'm like, listen, son, you need more sleep. And I'm telling him this as someone who's like an insomniac, because I don't sleep very well and he doesn't sleep very well. And so I'm trying to convey to him, who also my father used to convey this to me, is I need to get more sleep, which is true. But, it's one of these things where it's like, you got to have the opportunity cost trade-off. And sometimes you just want to run and experience all the things, man, because they're clamoring.
Well, I kind of laughed because as you were talking, it made me think about that's kind of the reason I haven't matched my socks since Gavin was 5 years old. So anybody who knows me, I don't match my socks because when Gavin was about 5, I was doing laundry, and I came from UPS, so they would do time studies on us all the time to make sure we were moving fast enough.
Right.
So I did a time study to see how long it took me to sort out for 3 people, match the socks, and fold them. And then I multiplied that out by how many loads of laundry we did per week, per month, per year. And then I multiplied that out times 18 years of Gavin being there. And it was something like 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
That I was spending just matching socks. And so I told Annie, I said, I'm done matching socks from this day forward. If they match, that's because I happen to come to them. The only exception is funerals, because I want
socks.
Because I don't want to be a clown for somebody else's moment. But other than that, I don't match my socks. That's funny. So because I'm saving myself 2 weeks over the span of time.
I didn't think about it like that, man. That's pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. I like that. Well, that's some mental mastery pieces that we can think about, and it's kind of fun for us. Next thing we want to jump in today is this concept of faith. I saw something online, which was a really interesting thing. It comes from a podcast, and it's called Experience the Truth Podcast. And they had a concept where people were responding. They said, do you believe in God? And they said, I don't believe in God. I believe in science. And they were talking about your response as a Christ follower to someone who says, I don't believe in God. I just believe in science. And their analogy they were using, it was saying, that's like saying that there's no creator to my car because I think I can explain how my car works, meaning the parts. What do you think about that as an example? Javen, what do you think?
Man, I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day, because there's like a whole group of people that talk online, and it's somebody that I've never met, but like through a mutual friend, they just happen to be in this voice chat or whatever. And he was saying the exact same thing, but the way that he defined science was very interesting. It was almost like he was saying that faith was essentially a cop-out for people not being able to explain something, or being able to couple with the fact that everybody dies and like whatever happens.
Okay.
But the way that he was also defining science was like, oh, science is just whatever is like the most available to the human intellect at some moment. But in that case, it also kind of defines itself as a cop-out, because you don't really know everything. Okay. And because you're just saying, oh, just because everything happens this way, this must be the only possible definitive explanation of anything, even though we don't have all the answers to everything right now. And I also think, to the point that you were talking about of like knowing how everything works, ultimately you have to stem to some source of origin. It's just how you define that origin that people get a little antsy about, because then you start to sound more religious in one context.
Yes.
And in another, they get afraid of that, so they try to push it away and define it as something mechanical.
Yeah, they kind of try and talk about how it's opaque, and Big Bang is more of like a general idea, but it's still tying back to a origin source. And so there's still an idea of like, where did this thing come from? You can explain a cell and cellular parts, even how a cell will reproduce, et cetera, but where did the cell come from?
Exactly.
And they've never seen anything that's come from singular cell into multi-cell in a successful way that's ever gone into a multi-cell organism in a successful way.
Exactly.
So we see all these big gaps within the concepts that were presented to us as fact. So it makes a very interesting thing that it points all these people that are really deep into it, the more and more of them are calling it the God particle.
Yeah,
They're calling it
exactly.
things that come back to the source, come back to creation. Angus, what do you think?
Well, I love science, and in fact, because I'm so logical and stuff, that's why I had such a hard time with things of faith early on, was because Christians couldn't explain to me different things, and they just accepted it on faith. And I was like, well, there were a lot of Christians who kind of went along with the stereotype of the just blind faith. And so it's like, well, are they very intellectual people?
Oh, yeah.
But when you would talk to them, you could understand, but they hadn't connected the dots. And so that's one of the reasons why I love to connect the dots. I love to see God in science.
Yeah.
And so I think that people who say that kind of a thing, that they believe in science, they just haven't had an effective tour guide to show them where all the connections are, because the reality is the way I see it is science is now catching up to the Bible. Yeah. There are so many principles and so many things that the Lord put into Levitical law and just and throughout Scripture that people see it as a rule book. No, it's a book of natural consequences. If you do this, then you do this. If you do this with, if you cheat on your wife, then this happens. If you eat this food, then this happens. And I think that that's the same thing with science. Is if you can draw the lines and go, well, that thing that you believe, this is where it talks about it in Scripture.
Right, sure.
And I think that that's the thing, is to help people see that there are some things that you absolutely can't explain because God's mind is not like ours.
Right.
And so because of that, there are going to be some mysteries, and the Lord speaks about what the reward is for faith and those kinds of things. But the things that we can know, we can kind of confirm with Scripture, and vice versa. So you can look at Scripture and science and go, do these align? And if you do, then you're like, okay, well, I can get behind that then.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I don't think that science and the Bible are at war at all. I think that you've just got camps of people who are unwilling to talk to each other.
I think that's true. I love science as well. Same concept. Love it. Think it's awesome. The beauty, the intricacy of what people study, how they study it, and it reinforces to me the beauty and the intricacy of God and His creation and His wisdom and His creativity. And so I think it's amazing. I think that all the fathers of science, all of them were Christians for them, and they professed their faith in all these major minds of creators and even people who were inventors. Like they still had a faith in God and understood it from that perspective. So it's pretty powerful to think about that. Here's a question for you guys. What scientific discovery wows you the most? What do you think that's something like recently that you heard of, you're like, wow, that's pretty awesome? Like, Javan, you were talking about CRISPR. Would that be something that you would say like is in that realm, or what do you think?
I mean, I think so, at least like in terms of, in theory, what they're talking about. But I heard something today that was very interesting. Was we were talking in English about misinformation, and apparently these Nobel Prize winners back in, I want to say it was like early 2010s or something like that, that said that the universe was expanding and then won a prize based off of it. There was a group of scientists that recently did like a much more intricate and in-depth study with a lot more data than they were working with back then. And they entirely came to like a conclusion that the universe can't be concretely expanding, which is really interesting. So the idea of like dark matter isn't proven by any sort of science whatsoever. So I just thought that was really interesting, because for the past 10 to 15 years, everybody's been trying to look at the creation story or what the idea of the Big Bang was through that kind of lens and saying, oh yeah, it must be something that operates kind of outside of what we understand as physical matter. But now they have more of like an in-depth explanation for how that works. I just thought the entire reframe of what we know about the universe kind of coming to a halt, at least for now, is pretty crazy.
That's interesting. I wonder if, obviously everything's being revealed as well as we know it to be. Yeah. So things that people had as fact back in the day are completely false now, and et cetera, et cetera. We grew up, Angus and I grew up where there was Pluto was a planet. Yeah. In your generation, no Pluto as a planet.
Yeah. It still is here.
It's still around. Yeah.
Well, I learned that apparently it's also like the official planet of Arizona or something like that. Like we still recognize it. It's just not federally recognized.
In Arizona, we're still game with
I think
Pluto.
it's apparently called Arizona's planet. That's what my English teacher
Yeah,
was
what's
telling
up,
me.
man? Pluto gang. You know what I'm talking about?
I should fight Great Hearts then, because I think my daughter's doing a planet project right now, and I was like, you should do Pluto. She's like, but Dad. I was like, no, let's take a stand
There
for
you go.
Pluto.
It's a dwarf planet, Dad. It doesn't count anymore.
He's the Disney character that nobody gives enough credit to.
I know. We used to tease our kids as an offshoot, but we used to tease our kids all the time. It's like, what kind of warped situation is this where a mouth has subjugated a dog to be his slave? In a world where everyone else talks, this poor animal, whatever, just mess around. Yeah. I came across this thing idea. We're talking about faith. I don't know where it came out of today, but I came out with this concept. I was thinking about back in the day, these Hillsong songs that there was such a pop, man. Like Hillsong was on a wave. Hillsong United was huge. Hillsong Worship was great. And then they had kids ministry, and they had whole albums of kids ministry music. One of the ones that was really popular this is back in the day, was Jesus is My Superhero. You guys know this song? You guys remember this? Jesus is my superhero. You're my star, my best friend.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, man, I was jamming out. I was like, man, I forgot about this. It just made me think about that. That song came out in 2004.
Wow.
So I was like,
I didn't discover it till much later, so that makes it better.
We're the ancient of days of this piece. And for me, obviously, Jesus is my superhero because he's real and he's saved us from sin and from death and from hell for eternity. So,
Amen. So one thing that I wanted to share that just blew my mind recently, and I can share it with you if you want to put it up, and I hope I get this right, but it's basically the biological evidence for show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
oh, really?
Okay, so cool. So this neuroscientist showed that basically as you connect with somebody, as you develop emotional and love bonds and stuff, what happens is the emotional difference between you and I dissolves and we become an us.
Oh, interesting.
So
Yeah.
in deep friendships and stuff. So if somebody upsets, because you're my pastor,
Right.
you're my employer, you're my friend, you share a lot of those things. So when somebody hurts you, they hurt me on a completely different level, right?
I sent you a reel about this.
Yeah,
Yes, that's
and I
crazy.
think I sent it to you as well, and I
Okay,
sent
awesome.
it to some other people. But it's that idea that so if you're associating with people who are not, above board or whatever,
Wow.
but you see them as an us, this is why I think that, and I'm kind of extrapolating from what they were saying, but we know that when you become a teenager, you fuse with your friends.
Sure.
And so if you're fusing with your friends and because you love them, you've literally dropped this wall between you and me. We're now an us. So when I say Javan is a bad influence on you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm attacking you as
well as Javan.
Javan,
Sure.
as an us. And so then you defend that person as if it's your own self, solidifying that friendship
that's
and all of
interesting.
that stuff. And so it's kind of that biological evidence of show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
That's such
Who
a
are you
relevant thing.
literally connecting with and connecting to and becoming a part of, and who's becoming a part of you as you walk together?
That's awesome, man. I love that. I think
So
it's a
wild.
big deal because it has a big piece on like the forward-thinking part of who you are and what you're about, stuff
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. Well, going back to Jesus' superhero, so the concept I was going to run today and just give you guys a little bit of a breakdown. I want to run a bracket at you guys with superheroes. It's DC versus Marvel.
Uh-oh.
Short list, so it's not everybody, but it's a few things. So we'll run a bracket for us today. We kind of include these from time to time, something to talk about. Okay, so who's the best superhero? So I'm going to run down some brackets. I need your answers. I'll be the divider, so you guys give us answers first. All right. First, we're going to run on Marvel side all the way down, then we'll run down DC. All right, so Marvel. Spider-Man versus Daredevil. What do you think?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, 100%.
Spider-Man, but I like Daredevil.
All right, which is the true Spider-Man?
Oh, out of the three?
Yeah. Well, 3, 4? How many is
I
it?
think it's, the main three.
Okay.
As for,
You going Tom?
Yeah.
no.
You going Toby?
No, I think you have to go
Andrew?
Yeah.
Andrew?
I think so.
Really?
Just because he puts on like the best overall performance of a Spider-Man as far
Interesting.
as like in terms of like his quirkiness and like just the way that the persona of Spider-Man is put out versus
Okay.
like Tobey, who's like literally a full-grown man in the first movie.
Sure.
And then he's kind of also like more of a geek. Rather, I think Andrew's like more of a comic-y Spider-Man. So
Interesting.
I'd say it's him.
Okay, so you're Daredevil, you're Spider-Man.
Well, see, I identify with the Tobey Maguire character because in the last movie he's cracking his back and the whole thing. I'm like, I think I'm the old Spider-Man. That's what my kids said. Because they also make the what are you, a cool youth pastor?
Yes.
thing. And so my kids told me that I was the old Spider-Man. So for that part, I like it. But I really do like Tom. I think Tom is a great Spider-Man.
I agree. I like him too. I like the other guys too. I'm a Spider-Man fan. I'd go Spider-Man over Daredevil for sure.
Yeah.
All right, next combo: Hulk versus Captain America. I think this is harder. I think they're right there neck and neck. What do you think?
I go Cap.
You go Cap?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Captain.
Because the Shield, because of America.
Hulk's got so much going on in his mind that, I mean, you just get him on the right couch and he's not the Hulk anymore. You know?
Oh, you're gonna solve it through through counseling.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
nice.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go with you guys on Cap. That's interesting. I do like Hulk smash. Come on, baby, that's some
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
stuff. There's some great moments of him just smashing things in all the Marvel universe.
I mean, he's the Donald Duck of the Marvel universe, which I love.
That's pretty great. That's true. For being like a really high, whatever, high regarded scientist, he doesn't, he's not very verbal.
Yeah.
Let's get some snaps there. All right, next combo: Iron Man versus Professor X. So you got Iron Man, which obviously super popular. Professor X, obviously, you're gonna have like all the X-Men. He's leading the way. What do you think, Angus?
I like the ingenuity of Iron Man.
Okay.
So I think I'd go with Iron Man.
Okay, Javen.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think just like the fact that you, in theory, could achieve like having that many gadgets or that much like armory by being that rich is like such a cool concept that I think people could see themselves in versus being like a telepathic cripple who's like just moving around in a chair that can like
Hover, whatever.
We'll see, but
exactly.
If you're Iron Man, you design a helmet that blocks his thing and negates his
Exactly.
powers, and now you're still Iron Man.
Yeah, Iron Man's interesting, right? It's like the Marvel version of DC's Batman, where it's like, oh, by my smarts and my richness, I have all the powers.
Yeah.
Without them, I'm just a dude. Like,
Yep.
but I have 6 suits and et cetera, et cetera. So I can see why it's a very American thing to be about Iron Man.
Yeah.
I'm also Team Iron Man. Okay. Next one: Wolverine versus Black Panther. I think this is close too. Pretty interesting. Javen, what do you think, man?
I go Black Panther.
Really?
I think he's such a cultural staple.
Okay.
And also like the lore behind his character and the idea of Wakanda is so cool to me that he always stood out. And his movie was great. So
You remember when we watched it in Alexandria?
oh yeah, the movie, any movie that came out between 2017 and 2019 for Marvel was so good in Alexandria because all the hype was built up around it. It was so
Yeah,
sick.
and we had like mobile chairs that would move and shake and all. It was pretty rad. It was even better than what we have here.
Yeah.
It was pretty impressive that they had that. What do you think, man?
As much as I like Black Panther, I like the longevity of Wolverine's story and through the ages and all the stuff that that he's done and all that stuff. So I'd go Wolverine.
Me too, and it's probably our age because like Black Panther wasn't really around when we were
X-Men
young.
was huge.
Huge.
When we were,
Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
had the huge cartoon, gigantic, and obviously Wolverine was like an eternal teenager. He's supposed to be 100-something years old or whatever, like having been all these wars, but he was always like, super like moody, and he was almost like he belonged on Twilight.
Always putting it to Cyclops. And,
Yeah, it's like, I know you have a girl, but I really like her. I'm gonna try and steal her. You know what I mean? He's like a weirdo, but it's also pretty rad. So I don't know. I think that's where I'm at. But I really did like Black Panther. I really liked the whole world that was there, like you're saying, Wakanda and all that. When Jay and I watched it, I told him, I was like, this is awesome, dude. Like this whole like opens up a whole nother avenue of concepts. So I thought it was pretty cool. All right, shifting over to DC. Superman versus the Martian Manhunter, which is pretty specific. You'd have to know that.
I don't know the Martian Manhunter, so I'm going to go Superman.
Okay.
Yeah, Superman.
I think this is a layup. Superman all day. I mean, Superman is like the one. He's like the Jesus version of every Superman, right? It's like
Exactly.
unstoppable, all powerful. Like He's everywhere, recharges from the sun. There's a guy like, be all powerful living in Phoenix. I mean, this is what he's doing. Stay away from, some kryptonite, you'd be golden, you know. So I think it's a natural one. The Martian Manhunter is supposed to be like really like OP as well. This is the concept. So that's the idea. All right, Green Lantern versus Aquaman.
Green Lantern.
Yeah, I agree.
Really? You guys are going Lantern?
Yeah.
What about it? Is this Ryan Reynolds? What are you guys going?
No, I just think I think he's cool. Like as far as his power, where you can kind of just transform like random objects out of nowhere, and just like it's just cool. Like versus Aquaman that just kind of lives. I wouldn't want to live in the sea that long. I'm not gonna lie.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's Green Lantern. You manifest a giant fan and blow away Aquaman's water. I mean, you just part his Red Sea and.
All I could think of is Lego Batman, where he's like, "Hey, Batman, it's me, Green Lantern." I think it's like Jonah Hill does a voice or something. Yeah. It's amazing, dude. It's so funny. Yeah. Or is it with Superman? He's like, Superman, it's me, Green Lantern. Yeah. We're buddies. You're like, okay. Which I thought was funny. Obviously, scuba diver stuff, man, Aquaman all day. I mean, it's like everything you ever want to have powers for, be able to swim, breathe underwater, talk to fish, like the whole 9 yards. Be part of Atlantis, figure out where it is, etc. So there's something to that. And if you look like Jason Momoa, you're doing something, man. That guy's unstoppable force. Yeah. So, okay, so Green Lantern moves forward, much to my chagrin. That's okay. All right, The Flash versus Wonder Woman.
I'd say probably The Flash.
Okay.
I just think he's cool.
Fast.
Yeah, fast. I mean, I haven't seen good enough Wonder Woman, I guess. I don't know.
Interesting. Hot take.
As far as like a storyline and all that, but as a character, I think I like the Flash better.
Okay, interesting. Javen?
Yeah. I mean, no, definitely the Flash. Like, just to be able to run essentially at the speed of light, or in theory, maybe even faster. I forget how fast it says he can go in the comics, but like, he's just insanely broken. Like, you could basically beat every other superhero as long as they can't keep up with you like that.
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I like the Flash. I'd actually go Wonder Woman because I just think it's really, the lore is cool, the world is cool. Kind of like the reason that you went Black Panther is probably the reason I would go the other way. Is because it's like, man, it's pretty awesome. They tie it back to like other historical stuff. I like the movies. I like Gal Gadot as far as in her role in this. I thought was pretty cool. Even the old school Wonder Woman, man, from like the 70s or whatever it was. I was always like, wow, who's that lady? You know what I mean? Who's that lady? You know what I mean? So, she was like a superhero version of like Daisy Duke. Yeah. I was like, whoa. As a young guy, I was like, infatuated. But I could see where you guys coming from with Flash. All right, last matchup here, and then we're gonna bracket it up. All right, Batman versus Cyborg.
Batman.
It's all day Batman. I mean, this is not even a thing. That was kind of a layup, I think.
Yeah. I think it'd be hard to choose between Batman and Superman.
It might come to it. We're gonna find out right now. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna run it back. So we have the winners of the brackets. So we have Spider-Man versus Captain America. What do you guys say, Javen?
Still Spider-Man.
Still Spider-Man.
Yeah.
What do you got, Angus? Someone coming to save you.
Gosh, that's hard. I don't know. I think I'd probably say Spider-Man too. I like his
vote against America, gentlemen. I'm serious. No, I would go Spider-Man also. But I mean, for a hot second, how'd you guys going? So that's pretty good. All right. What did we say? We said Iron Man versus Wolverine. This is a good matchup here. Iron Man versus Wolverine. Javen didn't choose Wolverine, but he did choose Iron Man. So
yeah, I'll probably stick with Iron Man.
Okay, Iron Man it is.
Yeah, I think I'd stick with Iron Man as well. I just like his gadgets.
Okay.
It still beats.
Agreed.
All right. I'll roll with you guys on this. I could have been a toss-up coin flip for me either way, so I think it'd be pretty cool. All right, next one is Green Lantern versus Superman.
Superman.
This is Superman?
Yeah.
I still like Green Lantern.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's a crazy take. Why is it a crazy take?
Well, just because Superman's like literally the exact model of a superhero that anybody has ever compared to. And like as far as the comics go, he's essentially unstoppable unless you have
powers, flight, underwear on the outside. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
See, and that's I guess because he was always such a strong character, I had a hard time with it's a hard time stretching to find adversity for a character like that.
That's true.
Whereas it's easier for some of these other characters to find I think one of the great things that makes a good superhero movie is at some point you're like, how are they going to get out of this?
Yeah.
How are they going to come back? And it's like, oh, just move the rock over there. And he's
Yeah,
good.
the foil. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and so that's why I think that there's more of a chance for adversity against the Green Lantern. That's the only reason I go with him.
See, I think, like, you know, as a guy who's been married for, you know, you've been married 20 years. I'm about to be married 20 years to Celeste. And so I think about times where I've, like, you know, forgot to put my ring on. And then, you know, Green Lantern's hosed.
Yep.
So,
True.
Maybe it doesn't need the ring. I don't remember the whole lore there, but I think he might be washed. All right, so we're Batman versus the Flash. So you got a rich guy with gadgets versus a guy who's fast.
I'd say Batman. I think that Flash could absolutely beat Batman, but I still like the gadgets and the whole persona.
Javen?
Batman. All day, every day.
First time. I'll go Batman. I'd even go Lego Batman over Flash. I mean, I'm deep in the pocket on the Batman. Okay. All right, so now the matches are here. So we got Spider-Man versus Iron Man to have the Marvel bracket winner.
I'd go to Iron Man.
I go Spider-Man.
Ooh, I get to break it? I'm going Spider-Man as well.
Yes,
I'm going to go Spider-Man. And the reason I would go only because I think in this case he actually has superpowers. So whereas the other one is just like we said, it's like a rich guy with like real smart rich guy. Whereas I think like Spider-Man, the story's cool. You know, he's a young guy going through awkward stuff and kind of that coming of age story, which I really like. So the other one is more like I'm a billionaire and trying to figure out who I am as a billionaire, which, you know, is very relatable. It's a very relatable concept to so many of us. So now we have the same matchup on the other side, which is Batman versus Superman.
I'd say Batman.
Okay.
Batman all day, every day.
Wow, you're going Batman over Superman.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, that's not a bad shout. All right, so it brings it down.
Well, if you put a few of the actors for the Batman, then I'm gonna go Superman. There's a couple of them that I'm like,
So you're like dicey depending on who the Batman is.
100%.
So if it's Val Kilmer Batman,
gonna have to go with Superman.
you go with Superman. Which Superman though?
Christopher Reeves.
You go the classic.
Yeah, I like Chris.
Classic
that
blue
takes me all
spandex.
the way back to childhood and stuff, man. I like that. I mean, the new Supermans aren't bad. I don't like. I don't like all the actors that they've chosen for Batman. There are only two Batmans I like.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm singing. I think I'm singing Superman, but I think it's Indiana Jones. Which is also a smart rich guy. So there you go. Yeah. So, okay, now we're down to the last gig. It is Batman now versus Spider-Man. This is a hot take. We're going to have all sorts of hate in the comments here. Spider-Man versus Batman. What do you guys say?
I'd say probably Spider-Man.
Okay. Javen?
Always been Batman.
Batman versus Spider-Man? I too am gonna go Batman. Yeah. They were upset, even though I just said one way for Iron Man with the rich guy with the gadgets. I love Batman, dude. I don't know. It's just been a classic. You know, all the different things we talked about on the pod previously about, you know, how obviously Christopher Nolan's Batman is the best one, and we were talking about that with Javen, who disagrees. But that's okay. All right, so our final person out of our bracket here is Batman. That's the one we went with. I could live with that as an answer. I think it's a great go. I could have gone a couple on this list, but pretty decent, guys. Pretty decent. All right. Part of what we do here at Cornerstone is talk about the 7 C's. Those are commitment, community, communication, competence, creativity, compassion, and celebration. Today we want to talk about this idea of compassion, and more specifically talk about Mercy House. It's one of the things that we've been happening here as an extension of our church. For many, many years was an arm in the community, kind of a community that's there kind of in a lower economic demographic with people who are first generation or second generation to the States. Many have a Hispanic background and that type of thing. A lot of people came to work the fields traditionally here, and they had that community. And it came out of the heart of Mercy Arredondo, though it's not named after her, but her mother, who had the same namesake. It's the concept of a place of mercy, a place of people coming and finding healing. And so it's a way that happens out in the community. As I said, 31 years of ministry, working now as a non-religious nonprofit, but still doing tutoring, reading programs, food, clothing, back to school, and Christmas events. And then as a church, we sponsor Easter events, Bible studies, and mentorship there as well. But Angus, you're a vital part of what's happening through Tia Mika's Closet and Pantry. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's great. Every other Saturday, so 2 Saturdays a month, Tia Mika's Closet has a distribution of food and clothing and different things. We have a Connex that is just busting at the seams with
Right.
clothing. In fact, we're looking for a place to get to send some of that currently. But then we're partnered with Midwest Food Bank as well as St. Mary's Food Bank, and so Dave Henderson and I go out and on a Monday morning, and we pick up from those various spots and bring it back and shelve. And then we have some volunteers who they're them with Dave. They're really the ones who make it all go. I just get to go and help pick up food, but they actually come in, assemble bags, and distribute and all of that. And so recently we've had quite a few families, especially with everything that's going on nationally with food programs and whatnot. But I think we had 60 a few weeks ago, wasn't it?
It's a lot. Yeah, they've had a ton. I know this last week was 40 something. I know they had over it was like over 50 bags, and then also all the unhoused people or homeless bags that we give out. A ton of those as well.
Yeah, and then I know coming up for Thanksgiving, they do an extra thing. So one of the things that they've been doing, just kind of as resources allow, is a few of the volunteers will cook a warm meal and things like that to be able to hand out.
That's right.
Which is incredible. And so because we're coming up on the Thanksgiving Day type distribution, or the one closest to it, they're smoking a few turkeys and doing some meals and stuff like that to be able to give out as they're giving out the food boxes. It's very cool.
That's
very
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I love that. Mercy House is amazing. I was a part of it as a student, as a teenager, helping at Mercy House and volunteering. We would do back to school, where a lot of kids in that neighborhood didn't have pens, pencils, like anything for back to school things. They didn't have any of it. And one of the pieces that they also didn't have was as schools started to have they needed to wear uniforms. They didn't have those either. So that was something that we could help partner with and help kids at back to school during that time. This year it was 750 families with backpacks. Is that how many we did? It was a ton of people.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure where it was.
Huge jump.
Yeah.
We had the previous year it was 500. The year before that was 300. So a massive step up in how many students got a backpack at the beginning of school, and some resources to have different pieces. We're partnered with Littleton Elementary. Very blessed to have partners in the community that care, would host that event at their location at one of their schools, Quinton Elementary. We ran out of space at our community center.
Mm-hmm.
It's based at a home that's on a corner in a community, so it's a house that we've repurposed. We have obviously our food pantry is there, and some meeting rooms for the different events we have. But man, we were packed, completely packed out. I mean, there was a huge line for hours down the street. And this is in summer. It's in August, because the kids go back to school in August, and it's like hot.
Oh yeah.
So for us to have it indoors and have air and all the other stuff, huge win. A big difference between the year before, giving out 500 and now over 750 backpacks, I think is the number. Amazing. So very thankful for all our community partners. We're thankful for all those that give to Mercy House. Obviously, we're a part of it. I help run it as kind of the lead there. And then we have directors that do those other pieces of it. But man, what a blessing to have, the Mavericks and all the different groups that come and help us. We had Amazon and Walmart and all the other big corporate partners that have come alongside as well, which has been a real blessing.
Yeah, it's very
huge
cool.
difference. One of the things that people are talking about, how do we get involved? The government's been shut down, even though it moved through the Senate. At the time of recording, we still haven't opened the government back up for all the other things, so people are not starting to get SNAP or food stamps and assistance in that way for those that need food programs, and that's something that we have been helping. So as we gave out all those food bags this week, that's a lot of groceries that can help with people. So if you want to give towards those things, you're welcome to do so. It's mercyhouseaz.org. You can go online. You can donate. It's tax deductible for those who are in Arizona, so you can give it as part of your state tax deduction, as well as just give in kind. So if you want to donate food or donate money, it'd be very, very well used and helpful. We have very, very little overhead there. We only have one full-time employee. Everyone else is a volunteer. So it's a real blessing, but it still takes money to run something like that. So a huge help to all those that make it happen. I was thinking about it in context about here, how, we're trying to do with what little we have to give back to the community. And then I was talking to a friend of all of us, actually, recently who was in Mauritania. And being in Mauritania, he said that the people that he was working amongst, they're very limited in their food access, and they don't have relief to that country currently. There is no real hope of change. And I thought about, man, what a difficult place to grow up and to not think that you'll ever have assistance in getting the next step up. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that the idea of hope is it's crucial, especially to a people group, and that was something that while I wouldn't say that Native peoples feel hopeless. When I went on, I've been on a couple of trips to the reservation, a few different reservations, and in general, there's an overwhelming feeling of hopelessness.
Wow.
Because you have these people who are stuck in systems, mainly government systems that have been put in place to kind of keep them in place. So it's like you can't get water until you get this, but you can't get this until you get water, and you can't, until you get water, you can't get electricity, and and there's a lot of different nuances, obviously, that but that's one of those things that there are some people that they've been waiting for generations still for electricity, and that's here in this country,
right? The reservations and within our own country, right?
Yeah, and they're still waiting for plumbing, and that's again in our country, and so because their basic daily their daily schedule or plight or whatever looks like get up and go get water, that they have to drive Lord knows how many miles by truck and get it, and and then get food, which they don't have access to really good food because the grocery stores won't come on the reservation, so they can't get ahead financially because they're buying expensive, and just there's so many things set against them that it's almost like why try, and so that's why you see on reservations there's a very high incidence of suicide, and alcoholism and substance abuse and a lot of that because of the hopelessness.
So the escapism.
And so yeah, absolutely escapism, and and it's just you exist, and so you just kind of use whatever money you do get, and because there's not a lot of industry, and the government will come in and take anything of real value, mineral rights and all that kind of stuff. So the people are left with this. Well, it doesn't even matter if I find anything value on my land because it's going to be taken anyway
from me. Yeah.
And so I would say that while again not all of the people are hopeless, there is a very real sense of hopelessness on the Native reservations here in at least the Southwest.
Javan, you've had a chance to go work on those with Pastor Angus and others. What was your experience?
It was cool. Like being over there 2 years ago, I can definitely relate to what he was saying. Like just the amount of barrenness that there is over in those lands versus like all the industry that we have here. You can literally go like probably half a mile and hit like a gas station, a grocery store, and probably whatever outlet that you need for like clothing or you need for technology, whatever it is. Whereas over there, they have to drive like several hours in order to get to any place like that whatsoever.
And usually leaving the res to do so.
Exactly. And that's if they have the resources to drive and go out there. And it's just so crazy to think about the fact of something like water, electricity, or even like plumbing being a scarcity for people like that, even within our own borders. It's just, it's heartbreaking to see that these people are being so marginalized because of where they're coming from. And there's also no government aid or support for them. And yet we're so concerned about sending all these resources in foreign aid to like people outside that have no correlation to us whatsoever. It's interesting to see just kind of the attitude about that. And I completely understand what you're saying about how being so marginalized, there is a sense of hopelessness. And especially for the people that you're talking about in Mauritania, where they feel so overlooked by news coverage that's being given towards these really big countries that have a really strong presence and economic presence within the world, yet their own people aren't being cared for, even by their own government.
Right.
And it's tragic, man. It really is a testament just to how blessed we are in the United States and how much access we have to whatever resource we want possible. So I think it definitely is within our mission, and I understand the initiative that we take as the Assemblies of God to send so much foreign aid with an emphasis on the gospel and preaching who Jesus Christ is to these people to give them that sense of hope while also giving them that sense of relief as well.
It's true. You know, we've seen a lot of interesting things happen where it's correlated directly to people's faith, and hope actually helps lift them out of poverty. And there's been examples of that, as there was a massive revival in Brazil. And following that, so many of those people, they lifted themselves up by work ethic and all these other things because it shifted their heart and it shifted their actions. And so they started to work together. They started to work with a purpose and a focus and sacrificially so they could lift themselves out of that level and go to the next place. And we see that in other places as well. A lot of the things that we've invested in, like for instance, even in Botswana, where we would go alongside partner with the national church, and then we would go and like put a water well in and a simple structure. I mean, a very simple structure that we call a tabernacle. It's just essentially a large shade structure. Like here in the States, we would consider that a shade structure. It doesn't have walls or anything. And then they backfill, they build that in. So they have skin in the game. They're actually going to pour the slab. They're going to do the other things. We just set up the frame around it. In doing so, man, you see huge impacts in their communities because now they have a water well that's sunk. So they have a value that's not just for the church, but for the community of people. So they're coming to the church property, understanding the church is for them, not against them. And this is in places where people don't necessarily believe what Christians believe. And so they're able to be the love and the love in the hands and feet of Christ to people around them, and to be a ministry in that way. So our hearts for Mauritania, our hearts for the native reservations and for those that are suffering in those places, and just believing for, you know, as we partner with people that are on the res, as we partner with people like those who are in Mauritania today and other places, that they would experience the very hope they're looking for, which for us is found in Jesus Christ.
Amen.
So praise the Lord. Scripture says in James 2:15-17, if a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace and be warmed and filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. So we need to be people about our faith, but also doing something with our faith and helping those around us. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.
Hey, competence is another one of our C's, and what we talk about often is we bring a highlight to some books that have kind of spoken to us. The first one we want to talk about today is from Mark Batterson. It's called Win the Day. This is a great book. We did it as a staff a while back. Mark's a prolific writer, author, a great visionary, a pastor out of Washington, D.C. area, originally out of Chicago, but a really great guy. I had a chance to meet him and spend some time with him a little bit back in the day. Spent time with his team in Cyprus, actually, some friends of his, and even his sister-in-law was getting a chance to connect up with them when I was there. So really insightful. But this book was really great for us as a team and as a staff. One of the first things that he talks about here, the first concepts, is this concept of for the day. Can you do it for the day? So he's talking about change you want to see. Can you do it for the day? And he gave some examples in the Bible, things that were done for a day. So he says manna was only good for one day, saying your anger is supposed to be taken care of before sundown, which is the day. Mercies, and Scripture says mercies are new every morning. So it's the one day. It says take up your cross daily and follow me, as well as rejoice in the Lord today. And then his concept is bury your dead yesterdays, meaning don't live in the past or your yesterdays, but let them be dead because you can't go back and fix them. And we move forward from the day now. So better the day, win the day today. And then we win today, and then tomorrow we win tomorrow. So you don't worry about tomorrow, you worry about the day. So it's a really interesting concept. What do you think about that?
I completely agree with it. This is one of the things that is very easy for me to align with as a long distance swimmer from high school, because for me it was always just one more stroke, just one more lap, and same thing with this, and I think that's what swimming and long distance swimming taught me, is that as long as you're still breathing, you haven't drowned. you've got one more stroke in you. One more stroke, yeah. And as long as you're still breathing, you've got one more stroke, and then you can just again extrapolate that out. That if you once you make it, now it's just one more lap.
There you go.
And once you're done with the lap, it's just one more race. And after the one more race, it's one more day, and all of those things. And so I think that it's really good. And if you can get that, then you realize that. All I have to do is make it through today. It's good. And in fact, I just talked with the youth about it today, and the way you make it through the day is also important. So I tell everybody in my family that every day is a good day, But that doesn't necessarily mean bad things don't happen.
Of course.
So it doesn't necessarily, just because something bad happens doesn't mean it was a bad day. It was a great day.
Good point.
With a couple of sore spots. Yeah. You know, but if you remember it as a bad day, you'll always look back at October, you know, November 11th and 12th as a bad day. And we don't need that.
No, it's exactly. Javan, win the day. What do you think?
Man, like going back to the sports analogies, like Angus was mentioning, like our soccer coach during our senior year will drill that concept into our head, because like whenever we would concede as a team, obviously morale is like, it just immediately goes down the drain, especially if it happens early doors in a game. But he always said this thing, he was like mind of a goldfish, where like after every goal that's scored, you just forget about it and treat the game like it's 0-0 and just go out and play with confidence and stuff like that. And I think even applying that to like your everyday life and your interactions with people is really, really important, because it teaches you that just because, like you were saying, one instance may have been bad or like kind of thrown you off within your day, it doesn't define everything that happened that day, or whether or not you go into everything with a positive attitude or not. And I think kind of going back to what you were talking about with church hurt, that's also definitely a real thing, where like people carry that sense of animosity and that sense of kind of like bitterness that they have for people, and they just let it swell over time. Even though they try to convince themselves that it's not important and just suppress everything down, over time it just continues to build until it bursts, and then people get really mad and cause church hurt to other people, or they just leave the faith entirely.
Interesting. Yeah. No, it's a good point. Very good point. I think that's why you have to win the day, and you have to have those pieces of letting your yesterdays be dead. It's a really good concept. Right. Appreciate that. Another look that we want to take a look at is John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. We've been kind of walking through this and looking at different laws. The law we want to look at today is called the Law of the Inner Circle, going directly to what you said earlier. A leader's potential is determined by those closest to them.
Yeah, it's, you know, now as a parent, you really see it. And the other thing too, as a pastor, that's one thing that I consider myself so blessed to be, especially as a youth pastor and family pastor now, is that I've gotten to see other families as they walk it out. And so you get to see what it looks like, how a parent runs their household, what they allow, and who they allow into their house and into the lives of their kids. And then, I mean, you can, because especially in the church world, where unlike, you know, a teacher where you've got them maybe for a year or whatever, you can see where the friendship started, but not where it leads.
Yeah, right.
We in the church world, because we've got some of that longevity with people, you can see when somebody falls in with a crowd, and you can absolutely track their behavior.
Absolutely.
And while everybody's course is different, you can absolutely see the same roller coaster, that it's, you know, they find this friendship, they think it's all great, then it takes them on this wild ride that doesn't necessarily end up in a whole lot of highs, and then they find that they need to come back to Jesus, and that they probably need to dump some of those friends, and then they find the new set of friends, and depending on how those friends take them, it depends on what that next roller coaster looks like.
Yep.
You know, and so as a parent, we are so blessed because of where we have our kids going to school, that they've got such an incredible pocket of friends, that they're all very level-headed. They're all very forward-focused. And so they don't have a lot of time for the knucklehead shenanigans that I got up to, which I praise God for.
There you go.
But I'm so much more confident in my kids' friends than I am in, you know, who my friends were, just because of the behavior we got up to. Not that they were bad people, but together we did not make the best choices.
Collectively, we were bad people.
Yes, as the line between them and me blurred, and we became one collective.
That's it, yeah.
One collective idiot. We went and did all the dumb things together.
Yeah, exactly. Law of the Inner Circle. Javan, what do you think, man?
I mean, man, it's so true. Like, for me, I would say I've kept the same core group of people for like the last 4 years, and like seeing that consistency within my own life, like the principles of just living by my faith and everything that I do, and like people that are accepting of that, and people that will encourage you in that step and like recognize that you genuinely are trying to do that, and they themselves are trying to also make that decision to like do good things and not go out and be stupid. It's definitely a marker that kind of helps you stay within that like longevity of your faith in terms of like running that course. Whereas as soon as college starts, everything's like a whole new ball game. Like everybody starts making different friendships. You run in all these situations where people have these big social gatherings and everybody wants to try new things, whether it be like alcohol, drugs, hooking up with people, things like that. So it's interesting to see some of my close personal friends also kind of fall into that trap where like they get introduced to one thing and then they start getting introduced to another thing, and like they're like, oh, it's okay, it's just like for this short amount of time, but slowly but surely their entire life starts to reflect that decision making. So I think that's definitely true. And especially within relationships, like it talks about within the Bible, to be equally yoked to your partner. Some people are so attached to a girlfriend or to a boyfriend that they have at one time that they think that their whole life revolves around them. And because they feel such love at the age that we're at now, where all these hormones are going on and everybody's like really interested in new things and things like that, they feel so much physical attachment or like emotional attachment towards one person that they just can't picture themselves without them. But if one person is so heavy into what they're doing within their own life and is like discarding what the other person wants to do or doesn't listen to the other person's input at all, then you become unequally yoked. And as you like to say a lot, when even though it looks like you're heading in this direction, a lot of times a bunch of people are crossing paths and just happen to catch themselves at the intersection. Mm-hmm. So it's really weird to see some of my close friends do that. And I think like over time, eventually it just goes right back to that point where as you continue to get hurt, you have to go back to Christ, realize that he is the answer to the source, or he is the answer to all your problems, and that you can only find fulfillment in him.
Some wisdom there, my man. Wisdom there. I like that. Yep. It very much is. Those around you are going to draw you one way or another. You know, we've decided kind of as parents, we allowed our kids to do a lot of things and try to give them some opportunity there. What's similar to what Angus was saying, like we're trying to be very specific about the settings that we put them in to give them the best opportunity to make those type of friends. And then their friends, man, we wanted to treat their friends like they were our kids too. And so, you know, obviously we're not going to correct them and things like that in that way, but build a relationship with them in an appropriate way where it's like, hey, we can talk to them and they could come to us and ask us questions. And it's different, obviously, with my role as a pastor. So they see me in a different light. So they'll come and we'll have some very interesting, sometimes some very deep conversations. And I'm encouraging them to honor their parents and to make wise decisions and to do those kind of things and think about things with heaven in mind. And so there's a piece of that I'm very thankful for the sphere of friends that you've chosen, your sisters have chosen, and that's a really good thing. And to Angus's point, yeah, you know, I was definitely part of some idiot collective wheeze for sure. Absolutely. And I'm not so sure I wasn't the one making them more an idiot than the other way.
100%. I know I threw some bad ideas out there and then lit the fire lit the fuse.
You know, it wasn't as my time whenever I was necessarily in high school. I mean, even though I made some stupid decisions there, mine was more later on where I was a ringleader of some chaos, or one of the ringleaders of chaos towards some poor decision making. And I'll say, like, man, I really regret that. You know, it talks about in the scripture, it's like better for you to have a millstone hung around your neck and thrown to the deepest ocean than for you to lead these little ones astray. And there's so many cases, man, where I was the one introducing people to the very things Javan was just talking about. It's like, oh, they're exploring all this stuff. I was the one that was like, hey, you want to go do this with us? You know, giving them every opportunity and like giving them a ride and doing, it's like all the worst. I was like the worst enabler. Yeah. Because I was like, well, we're a collective. Let's go collective bad decisions together as well. It'll be more fun. And so that was one of the things that later I very much regretted. And it was one of the things I think also kept a number of my friends whenever they saw the change in my life. They didn't know if they could believe it because they knew how I was before. Yeah. And so they were just like, all right, we're going to see how this really takes. Yep. So, you know, the Lord be praised. You know, all of us are in process. None of us have arrived. All of us are following Jesus
100%.
To be more like Jesus. And so that's our ambition, to be more like him. And so our heart is this, that we would have the right kind of group of friends. That's why we want people to come and connect and make a friend. Yep. Because it makes you so much more successful in your life after Christ, because the influence of people around you will encourage you back. So such a good thing. Well,
and, you know, to speak to that was one of the things that made such a difference in my life when I started coming to Cornerstone, was because I got involved in community here. I got involved in the life groups, and I became a part of that. I became a part of the we. You know, and so now when I talk about it here, I talk about us and we, and that's a big difference. And so when people speak bad about my church, you know, and they speak poorly about my brothers and sisters here, whether or not I agree with the behavior or not, you know, it's still, you know, it's like on me too.
Right.
And so again, it's not just with the direct people, but the organizations that you tie yourself to.
Yeah, it's true.
And so look at the organization that you've tied yourself to and see where they're pointed, because that's where you're kind of the direction you're headed. So I would say that, especially for people who are looking for a church, find out where they're headed exactly and make sure that you can align with that, so that you're properly yoked at your church.
Yeah.
As you become a part of that part of that
huge.
us.
And then represent by being a part, being
Absolutely.
active, being active
Absolutely.
in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So important. All right, last thing, we'll wrap up here. Some rapid fire questions to ask you guys. Some pretty good ones. And we do 7 questions to finish out. So, latest skill you have learned. Javan, you're in a new phase of life, adulting and whatnot. Latest skill.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like Excel, and we're learning SQL for like our CIS class.
Okay.
I just have never worked with spreadsheets.
Computer
so now,
integrated systems.
So now I'm actually learning how to do it.
That's
It's
pretty cool. So you good at it? Savvy at it?
I mean, not like fully yet. I know how to like operate tables, and I know like the basic of functions and things like that, or like how to look up data in a database. But like, if you ask me to go do it from scratch, I'd be a little concerned.
So you're not a keyboard warrior yet?
No, not yet. Not yet. But I will get there one day.
I thought you were going to say editing fire TikTok reels has been your new skill set.
Oh, yeah.
So you did learn that this summer.
Sure.
So been doing a great job as a producer for us here. We appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Amen.
Appreciate you
Yeah.
Good
guys.
work.
Yeah.
Love the shorts. Love your TikToks and Instagram reels, and even your long form of this digitally video, throwing different pieces in it. It's pretty fun. So thankful for that. It's pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's
Amen.
been fun.
Yeah.
It's been fun, man.
I love that. Angus, what do you think? Skill you've learned?
I learned how to build a trapdoor.
That's awesome, man. Wow.
So for Willy Wonka, there's the nut bin where she crawls up onto it and drops down, which happens to be your daughter one of the nights.
I heard that, yeah.
So that put a little bit more pressure on the construction process as I'm supervising our students.
There
I'm
you go.
Okay, we need to make sure that we don't kill the actors here, because
Million must survive.
I go to church with
That's right.
I go to church with the parents, and the dad's my employer. And
No,
friend,
she's
and-
gonna do great. You do
No,
good stuff.
it's great. So so learned how to build a trap door.
That's
Sick.
awesome, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Skill sets. It's interesting. I'm in the middle of a PhD. I'm in year 2, so I'm currently always learning a new class, new things. We're actually going through motivation and influence right now, which is really interesting. So it's talking about different approaches to that, more than just Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's beyond that to other concepts of what really motivates a person. So that's been probably something that I've been most recently learning is application and organizational goals. Is this how do you have alignment that honors both those who you're working with and not trying to manipulate them in a negative way, but actually be some kind of working together in collaboration and cooperation towards actually trying to see something happen. So it's a positive reinforcement and a positive motivation. So that's a tricky one, because there are levers that you see right in here like, oh, I know exactly how they do this politically.
Mm-hmm.
And, you could see where the levers work, and those are the easier ones. So it
Yeah.
works a lot more effort to do what we're doing with volunteers and other things like that. There's a lot more to it. So
Yeah.
I'd say that's the skill that I'm currently learning.
That's cool.
So pretty cool. All right. Quote you live by. You have a quote that comes to mind. Doesn't have to be the only quote you live by, but is there something that pops off? You're like, this is something recently I really liked. Could be a quote, could be a song lyric.
One that I'm really trying to live by is don't put it down, put it away.
Ooh, I like
So,
that.
It's one that's kind of a thorn in my side, because every
Oof.
time I put something down, I hear it and I'm like, okay, shut up, because I'm really too busy to go put it away right now. This time I am too
so
busy.
good.
So don't put it down, put it away. That's mine. I
wow.
hate it. I hate it, but at the same time, I need it so much in my life.
Yeah.
It's really good, man. Very good. Javan, what do you think, man?
Man, I don't even know if anything comes to mind. I kind of just wake up and do stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't really I think the motivation just comes out of like habit and routine. Like as you continue to do things consistently and like motivating yourself towards that aspect.
Mhm.
I think if anything, that's kind of what I live by. If you were to put like a staple or like a label on it,
Mhm.
but like every time I watch like a quote or a motivational video, nothing really like jumps out at me. You know what I mean?
Okay. So going back to a podcast recently where we were
Yeah.
talking about Duhigg's book about habit
Yeah.
and basics of habits. Did any of that click with you about the idea of a cue connecting to your habit?
I mean, a cue a little bit, because I think like at specific times of the day, you start to like kind of get geared towards doing like different things. So for me on Mondays and Wednesdays, I operate like all day long. So specific times my body's like geared to do certain things. So I'm kind of like on go all day during Wednesday, and then during Tuesday and Thursday, I find it hard to have more motivation to actually get up and do things because then your body's in like more of a lax state, and you're like, I don't have to do anything today. At least that's what you tell yourself.
That's
so just the consistency of that is definitely the harder part.
That's good. I would say a quote for me, it was actually Craig Rochelle's book, is very similar to this, but we'll talk about that in weeks to come. But one of the ones that was on there was talking about not falling back into your old ruts, but actually trenching new ways forward and new habits. So I really like that concept. And the other one, it came, Dr. Huberman is a guy who's really popular on social media. He's a professor and a teacher at Stanford, works on neurological stuff. He said, sleep is your superpower. And I was like, ooh, because I am someone who fights with sleep. And so I was listening to him on that, especially as a gentleman becoming more distinguished at my age. that I need to probably get a little bit more sleep and be a little bit more focused on those kind of things. So
yeah.
Something I need to work on a little bit better. All right. Are you a risk taker or risk averse?
Depends on where. But overall, I think I'm more willing to take risk. And I think that's because I'm optimistic.
Yep.
And so as an optimist, I think this is going to turn out just fine.
Yeah.
So because of that, that's why I don't play poker. One of the reasons I don't play poker is I was always too optimistic. I was like, I can absolutely win this hand.
It's going to land on the river.
Yep. I've got a 2 and a jack. And I don't know they're not suited, but I know something's going to come from it. Jesus, let's go, So, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Make you want to kick a fat kid and kick him hard. Praise God, somebody.
That's right.
Hilarious. All right, Javan, are you risk taker or risk averse?
I think if I'm confident in my ability to do something, I'm definitely a risk taker. Like I'll bet on myself to do that and be like, oh no, I can achieve this like pretty easily. Yeah. But I think if it's like more unfamiliar territory, or I have some hesitancy towards, I guess, the result long term of something, I'll definitely be more like risk averse.
Well, if you can do it, is it really a risk?
I mean, it just depends. It depends on like
how
far you shoot, right?
That's
so I don't know.
But it is a new concept, so it'd be interesting. Yeah. Man, I for sure, when I was young, I was very YOLO. Like, you only live once. Let's do this thing. Like, kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy. Let's go for it. And so I think that's a piece of me. I'm definitely on the risk-taking side, but I will say that's very taken. I've very much been curbed and very more specific and intentional. And whenever it comes to, especially as a pastor and leading organizations, you can't often run and change this and change that and all those things and think that people are going to stay with you. You have to be very strategic. You have to communicate what you're going to do. Then you have to re-communicate it. Then you actually do it. Then you have to explain what you did, and then remind people what you did and why you did it.
Yep.
And doing all those things, it's a big process. So we talk about like how, if it's an older, bigger ship, it takes longer to turn. So an older, bigger church like we have, it's like it takes longer to make changes happen. Now, we've been very much constant in change and constant in continuing that process. People have been very open to that. But I think it comes because we've been very intentional. So, but you still got to take the risk that people are going to say yes and just kind of step out, and it doesn't always go your way. You know what I mean? So I'm definitely more on the risk side. I think you can't plant a church, you can't live abroad, you can't do all those things without being willing to take some risk.
Well, and part of that too, you also can't jerk the wheel too.
Correct.
And so, especially with a vessel that moves just a little slower, if you start jerking the wheel, people are just going to start falling off
100%
left and right. And so there really is, and that's one of the things that has been really interesting, because I've been I started under Pastor Rich, and then I've come along as that transition, and so it's been really neat from my perspective to watch, as it went from one captain, so to speak, to the next, and watch that the destination hasn't changed at all, but the method by which we're traveling to get there has been altered a little bit. But it's been, there've been incremental changes over time, some of them larger than others, but enough that it's not, we're not trying anyway to give our people whiplash from all of the changes that that are going on, but enough that it doesn't feel like stagnation. Because that's the other thing too, is, I mean, if you get too comfortable with change and nothing changes, then it becomes stagnant, and then all the things that comes with that.
That's a great point. Yeah, we have to be reaching the younger generation. We're one generation from not existing, so we always need to be those who are engaging with younger ones. Even here tonight on our campus, we happen to be filming this on a Wednesday night. We have young adults that are meeting. We got people that are doing, Celebrate Recovery. We had prayer that's happening. We have all sorts of things happening simultaneously, which is really powerful because it just shows how much life and how much energy people are really being intentional to do.
Yeah.
So I really love that. All right, next question. Have you ever met someone famous? What do you think? I feel like we need music. Dun, 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 dun.
When I worked at the at Bank One Ballpark,
Yeah.
I worked there 2001 during the World Series. So I met several of the Diamondbacks and stuff who were on the team. I met Jerry Colangelo, things like that. So I mean, they're local famous.
Sure.
But I've never met anybody enough that they would remember who I was or anything.
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
you're like friends with them
yeah.
or something. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I know somebody who's known on a national scale. I went to high school with her.
Yeah.
Chelsea Crisp.
Yeah.
She. So I know her.
She's famous.
So I consider she's famous in my world.
Yeah, she's famous. She's
very
on
cool.
TV and on
Yeah.
shows and syndicated and national movies, things like that.
Yeah, so she's cool.
That's
I went to high school with her.
That's
So,
true. Yeah, I grew up with Chelsea. Like, I was best friends with her sister, so we did a lot of stuff with their family. So I've known them as well. Growing up was pretty cool. We lived a block apart.
Yep.
So
Great
pretty
people.
fun. Exactly. J-Bo?
First person that comes to mind is the professor when we were in LA in 2021.
Yeah, we met the professor.
Which for me was huge because I grew up watching that side of YouTube and watching a bunch of ball. So it was just awesome to see somebody that had been a staple not only for N1 but for the basketball community at large that had watched him wear all these ridiculous costumes and then just destroy people at 1v1s in Huntington Beach. It was awesome just to see him in this, I don't know, down to earth environment. It was really strange.
Yeah, it's super cool. He goes. He's a part of the Fearless Community of Faith over in LA. Our friend Jeremy Johnson, Christy Johnson, that lead there. I think his name's Grayson, right?
Yeah.
Because when he introduced himself to us, we met him, and my friend Jeremy was inviting me, was introducing me to him. As he walked up, I knew who he was. Obviously, I mean, same as Javan. Watched him, knew who he was. So he was super kind, very cool. He's like, "Hey man, what's up? I'm Grayson. It's good to meet you, man." And introducing himself directly to Javan, talking to him, talking to me. Super nice guy.
That's cool.
So it's just pretty fun. It's interesting as we lived in, I lived in Southern California. I lived in Newport Beach area, then around in LA, running around, and then north of LA. We came across all sorts of famous people and saw them. Some of them times we got a chance to meet them or say hi to them. But like you said, not in a know them kind of situation. I will say, obviously, Chelsea, who came out of here and then went to Los Angeles, became famous. I had a friend from school. Her name's Emily Rose is her acting name. She was on a show, a show where she was a headliner of it, on a bunch of shows and in a bunch of movies. She has a new Christmas movie coming out this holiday season, which is premiering. So been watching a bunch of that. So shout out to Emily. I think she's great. She's always been very sweet, always been really great. And so I even seeing her now as a wife and a mom and other things, she's really consistent in her work. Really cool. She's a voice actor for video games and a bunch of other things too. So that's pretty neat. And then I've got a chance to run across a bunch of famous people, which is fun. I always razz my wife, Celeste, which shout out to her if she's listening to this. I love you, boo. But I always give her a hard time because when she was young, she ran into Mark Wahlberg, Marky Mark, when he was still a rapper. It's
with the Funky Bunch.
Yeah, had the Calvin Kleins and the 8-pack and the whole 9 yards. And I guess he was like, "Hey, what's up, girls?" And stuff. So I'm always messing with her, when we're gonna watch a movie together. I'm like, "Well, we can watch this, or we can watch Marky Mark." She's like, "I'm going to stab you." Yeah. No, she doesn't really threaten me, but you get the idea.
That's funny.
So it's kind of fun. I ran across different ones that were famous back in their day, kind of MTV famous. So I ran across some different people back then. Just circles running around Southern California, Vegas, places like that, when you're young and not making wise decisions. They were also not making wise decisions. So that's how I met them. It's a weird world we live in. All right. Do you like to dance?
Yeah.
Are you a dancer? Would you break it out? Not right now, but would you be someone who'd be like, "Oh, let's go dance"?
Yeah, I've got no problem.
That's awesome.
For the most part, yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
J-Bo, how about you?
I mean, a little bit.
A little bit?
I don't really bust it down a whole lot, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
I just kind of I don't know. I like listening to the music more and kind of feeling the energetic part of it. So something more like EDM or like the bass and drum that you would hear like within rap or hip hop like sticks out more to me, but I'm not gonna like overtly go and just like start dancing, you know.
Not shaking it.
No,
You're not
no.
Napoleon Dynamite, just like running it on the stage.
Exactly.
You can start doing the moves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing.
Makes me think of the Wild Hogs line. The music makes me move, but it moves me ugly.
That's great. Man, same. I like to dance. I think it's fun. I had this weird thing that happened because I was young. I went from like a club EDM rap kid, like I was like lived that life, and for years like underground raves and warehouses in Los Angeles and being in Vegas and etc. You know, running sticks, whatever. All that hip hop clubs, all this other stuff. You know, people see you walking. But and then here, even growing up Mercy House, like everybody was like b-boy, like running on linoleum or on cardboard doing, you know, breakdancing. So big into all that stuff. But it was weird. Like whenever I stepped into being a pastor, I like started thinking like, oh, I need to be very like prim and proper. And so it was like a couple of years, man, where I just like put a complete hiatus on dancing, which is really weird. And then like whenever I got married, like we didn't really have dancing at our wedding because we was too packed for what we were trying to accomplish here. But when we went on our honeymoon, like, you know, I'm trying to get my wife to dance with me, and she did choreography, national choreography things that won like big awards, and she could do all this stuff, but she didn't. She was like getting embarrassed. I was like, "Come on, girl!" Like trying to pull her out of the dance floor. So I've kind of got over that, but there's not a whole lot of spots. We don't like go dancing or anything like that. But you know, if there's a spot, of course, I'll slow dance with my wife and hang out and stuff like that, or jump in and have fun in a crowd environment. But
I was dancing in front of a bunch of high school students this Saturday as I was jamming out to music at set construction. They were watching me. I'm like, hey, you gotta have fun with this.
you're
stuff.
right, you guys, Darude Sandstorm. Come on.
100%. 100%.
That's awesome. All right. What's a nickname you've had?
My high school nickname was Troll.
That's solid.
So I was called Troll because of my stature.
Because of your stature.
And I did play
Your willingness to rob people under bridges.
That became a long running joke of the bridge jokes and all that kind of stuff was long running. But I did play a troll in one of the shows I was in, and because I did such a good job and because of my stature, that just kind of stuck. So
that's pretty crazy.
Everybody in our friend group had a nickname.
Oh, there you go. That's funny. Exactly. Javo? I mean, I literally call you Javo, but you know.
Yeah, that's essentially the only thing I've been called. But like, if people don't know my name, I guess they'll call me like Javan for a good period of time, especially when they read my name out. Just like they read Javan Brown and they think like some melanated kid's gonna walk in.
Yeah, for sure.
And then they see like a very white kid walk in, and they're like, "Oh, okay." So
even though you're also Hispanic and all this, but you
true.
come across very white.
Yeah, no, you would not be able to tell by looking.
Your sisters look more Hispanic.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, Javen and I, man, the girls, even when we lived in Egypt, Celeste looked like she could be Egyptian for sure, being Hispanic and white. And the girls also looked like they could be, you know, Egyptian. So they'd assume that, you know, their mom married like a foreign white dude. And so that's what they always assumed. Like, you know, Javen and I, we look like European vampires, unfortunately. So we didn't have a way into the culture. Yeah. We were always sticking out, man. That's just how it goes. You know, I had all sorts of nicknames, all based mainly off my last name, our last name. So people would call me like Brownie. They'd call me like, you know, just variations of that, which was kind of dumb. But, you know, that's what kids are, you know, like, what's up, Brownie? Hey, what's up? So they kind of call it stuff like that. And then later it was like, my dad and all them called me Bubba. Like I was just Bubba. And so my uncle, my dad and all them, until like I was probably a teenager, they call me that. And it was just kind of default, like kind of you were a Bubba. You know what I mean? It was like, hey, go do this, Bubba. Like that's how it was. Yeah. It's kind of a default placeholder kind of name. But then like in high school it was more like J-Rock, which was like more drumline and stuff like that, because we'd be rocking out and stuff like that. And so that's what they called me. So that was like my nickname. Like people didn't even call me Jason. They did not call me Jay. They call me J-Rock. Yeah, so it was just kind of what they call me.
My friends all called me Troll.
Yeah.
My dad absolutely hated it. One time it was...
You mean your doctor father, who's the head of boards?
He hated it. Because when you become a thespian, you'd also get a thespian nickname, which is based on some things, and they'd make a sign for you. And he liked my thespian name, which was Immortal Keebler.
Oh.
You know, because McLeod, Immortal, you know, Keebler Elf. So
that's fire too.
So, but that was just, you know, that was too long to yell out in a crowd, but troll is a lot easier. And then we called my dad Papa. So instead of dad. And so one day my dad walked in and my buddy called him Papa Troll.
Oh no.
I thought he was gonna die. I was so excited. I was gonna watch a murder right there in my living room.
No.
And he
no.
he looked at him, and the blood just started to drain from my friend's face. Started to drain from our faces too, because we were about to watch him die.
Oh
it was
no.
So great.
I'm hoping your friend has survived.
He survived. My dad was very quiet. And we had a talk afterwards.
I bet you did. Oh my goodness, man. Wow. Yeah, nicknames are always fun. They're always really crazy. I know, like, we call it Javo since he was little. Javan, we took his name, Brown as a last name, super, super common. And I was a Jason Brown. There's been a Jason Brown at every single school I've ever went to. I was a guy in the top 10 most wanted out of Phoenix with a nose like mine. So thanks for that, by the way, dude, wherever you are. He was a guy who had connections in Latin America and in Europe. So every time I traveled out of the country, I always had to go to secondary and learned all that. And for me, years and years, this guy, he's still on the limb. They still didn't catch him. So, interesting cat. But because of that, I was like, we got to give Javan a little bit more unique in name. For a second, I was like, maybe I should hybrid my name with Celeste's last name, because her last name was Quintanar when we got married. So we'd be Quintanar Brown to make it a little bit more unique. But we decided to give, a Bible name to Javan. We were looking at it, and we saw it was Noah's grandson who went to Europe, and we weren't planning to move to Europe, but it was interesting because that's what the name we chose. And so from the time he was little, we'd call him Javo. And then Australians came through. We were hosting Planet Shakers, which shout out to them. They're an amazing band and worship group, and also a church. Done a lot of great work across the world. But they were coming through. I got to host them a couple times. And so Javan was real little. So he's like hanging out with the drummer and the drum set and like hanging out with them, and took him to like a hockey game. They'd never been to a hockey game before, and set him up to go shooting with friends. And they were just blown away, right? Doing all the America stuff. But like when I picked him up to put him in a van, they were blown away by our big lifted trucks. Like, look at the size of this lorry. It's crazy, And they're like, who's this guy? I'm like, this is Javo. And they're like, Javo? Hey! Because they will do a lot of like change the name and add an O. That's a very common like Aussie kind of way to do a nickname, which is pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And so Javo. So we're the one we always call him that.
That's cool.
It's kind of a default setting. Not that he had a long name to start, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
So we call Shiloh Shy. We call Amelia Millie, or whatever, like whatever it is.
I don't even really feel like you call her anything. I think you just kind of like say Amelia all the time.
We say Amelia a lot. I was like, I think of like Millie, like Mili, which is interesting. It's more like, well, you had a grandmother's Mildred, and we called her Millie. Yeah. And I'm not really thinking about that in step, but they actually have a lot of commonalities. Almost like my grandmother, when she went to see Jesus, she was having a pep talk with my daughter before she got here. It's like, listen, girl, give him the sauce. Like go for it. Be salty.
When they expect you to go right, go left.
But in a good way, like in a really great way. So amazing. All right, last thing we'll leave with today. One word to leave the podcast. Javan, what's your word?
Intentionality.
Love it.
Endurance.
I'm going to go with compassion. Friends, thanks so much for being a part of the collective today. We love you. Thank you for joining with us, and share this with friends so they can be a part of it too. Much love until next time.